If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle.
Yeah, this is Houston. We're copying. Everything is go here.
We shall fight on the beaches and in the streets. We shall never surrender.
I'm in it just to rewrite history, cause I'm in the mood to label us the leaders of the new school. This ain't for the radio, can't find this on YouTube. This the type of killing that these critics ain't used to.
You're a group of happy rebels. You've said no to the rules of the game and the regulations of the day. You've said no to the conventional wisdom. You're all originals.
In this day and age, I got time for innovation, time to be creative, time to make the way so my...
Welcome to the 90 Proof Wisdom Podcast, where we dream big and challenge the conventional wisdom. This podcast is about distilling the lessons we've learned in life, business, and turning them into tools that will help you succeed personally and professionally. We're about standing firm, running toward the battle, building communities, changing the game, and staking our claim. So Chris has a really interesting story. I went to get my hair cut right in the midst of Corona, and I walked in and I had my mask on, and then I remember he said, "Hey, get that off in here. I didn't go to fight for us to go have a 10-cent mask. Think that's going to protect us, right?" So I'm like, all right, hey, this guy's just my type of guy. Perfect. Off it comes, and then you put that American flag barber hair cutting deal around, and I'm like, okay, I think I found a new hair cutting guy.
Right.
So anyway, I kind of we had a fun talk. Kind of went through some of your frustrations because you were really peaked, I think, that day.
Oh, definitely.
Excuse me, when it came to this is just in the opening and some extreme stress and frustrations, and
definitely.
While we were being held back from just being free Americans, right?
100%.
And I really kind of understood your frustration, and you just had an opportunity to kind of dump, and it was a great opportunity. I don't even know if you remember what you were talking about, but you flailed out there, and I love to hear it. So.
I ramble on a lot, so my feelings are still there.
Sure.
when it comes to politics and everything else, and I respect people's fact that if they want to wear a mask, wear a mask. But I think the respect needs to go both ways,
right?
And I'm just tired of everybody thinking that they know all and is all.
Right.
If you have any other opinion other than theirs, God forbid,
right.
And because you're not going to hear the last of it.
We talked about this yesterday with Ken, how divisive everyone is, and it's either you're on their side or you're not at all, right?
For sure.
And there is no way to find common ground if we don't respect, right? But I think we live in the everyday world. The news pretends it's a big false medium. Right. I think they want to make this America that's full of hate, and I spend a ton of time on the road, a ton of time with people, a ton of people I don't know, a ton of people I do know, a ton of people of color, a ton of people of different, races and ethnicities. And guess what? I haven't found any I don't like. I love them. And I've learned more having that opportunity to be out and about from them and from everyone else than I have, staying home for sure. And sitting in my own ethnic group and my own, economic group. And, I think it's really short-sighted.
Right.
But ultimately saying, going to, China and France and everywhere that we go, I haven't had any really bad people.
Right.
But I look on TV and I'm like, good Lord, the world's full of bad people.
Oh, yeah.
And it isn't.
That's what they want us to believe.
Right. It's not. And you've been around. And I want to hear kind of your story. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in, kind of a long story. So I was born in Colorado, lived in Texas for a while, moved to Utah. I grew up in West Valley. Utah.
Rough. Ooh, just easy.
It was real nice when we first moved there, and eventually got rough.
It get rougher.
It's definitely not nice.
Is it?
No,
not
at all.
Well, I stand corrected then.
Fair
enough.
Not at all.
Okay, so West Valley.
Yeah, went to Granger High School. Graduated in 06. Joined the Marine Corps shortly after. My daughter was pregnant, I got my ex-girlfriend pregnant in high school. Had my daughter in September, so shortly after we graduated.
Yep.
And I was freaking out. I was working at Costco, figuring out how to support a child when I could barely support myself. So I had some buddies that grew up with that were in the Marine Corps. Was speaking with them, and they're like, "Man, join. You get 100% medical, guaranteed paycheck." So I says, "All right, let's do it." So all in all, I joined to provide for my daughter. but there were sacrifices involved. I was away from my ex-wife. I was away from my daughter for several years, and but that was kind of a sacrifice I was
willing to take,
to make sure that she was okay.
So, Marine Corps. Talk
Corps,
about it.
Yeah.
So you're 18.
18
years old.
Yep.
Did you have fear going in?
Oh yeah.
Did
you?
Yeah.
When I first signed up, I figured I can handle this.
We were obviously at war at the time.
Yeah, everybody's. When you're that young, obviously you feel like you're invincible. You're
no,
Superman,
not true. I was a puss. I didn't. Everybody's like, "Hey, you're going to join?" I'm like, "No way, no way." Now's a different story. Like I was talking to Randy about last week.
Right.
I could do it today, and I'd love it. Like I would love to go to combat. Love it.
Well, look at the experience.
But I'm a 47-year-old angry man.
Yeah, but
well, not really, but not scared.
You're a firefighter.
Yeah, been through a few. But when I was 18, I'm like, Mom, no, don't let him freaking draft me. I would I'm going to go back to France where you come from, Mom. I was a puss, I'll be honest. So invincible was not me.
Okay.
But you were invincible.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, until I signed my life away. After I signed my life away, going through the whole process, going through MEPS, flying into MCRD, California, staying on the footprints, and I remember laying in the rack that night and being like, what the hell did I just do? What the hell did I just do? And it was just mayhem for 3 months,
Is that boot camp?
Oh, yeah, boot camp. Yeah, just crazy mayhem. Yeah, I was just I was a basic knuckle dragger,
Yeah.
Oh, you don't ask questions, here's a rifle. Go have fun, So they, I don't know, grunts in the infantry, obviously, so I was a grunt. I'm a big infantry. So after boot camp, I did a 3-month stint at school, or SY, School of Infantry. And after that, went to the fleet, finished my time. I got out early, got injured, some things happened, and I got out in 2008. And that's kind of where the struggle began for a good period of my life. I think I finally pulled my
So you were only 20,
yeah,
21 almost.
Yeah, 21.
Right.
And
just in time to be able to start drinking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
which doesn't help.
I definitely took advantage of that.
Sure.
Big time drinker, alcoholic for a while. Basically controlled my life for a long time. Because of alcohol, I burned every bridge. Family, friends, siblings, burned every bridge. Was a couch surfer for quite a while.
So from house to house, sleep on people's couches.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Whoever will take you in, whoever's floor you didn't throw up on last night.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I was a big-time dirtbag.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. Big-time dirtbag.
For how long?
Oh, that was a couple of years.
So demons that you were trying to bury.
Oh, yeah. Extreme.
Right. Work from the Marines.
Yeah.
Demons. Did you fight combat?
I did. Yeah. So
that's
I did.
Where the demons kind of came in.
I went to Fallujah, Iraq in 07 to 08.
Okay.
But I also had some demons from my childhood, and it just everything was kind of flooding in.
Right.
Everything was flooding in at one time, and I had some injuries from the military that I was also dealing with. Didn't know how to deal with them. Wasn't getting any help from the VA. Took me a long time to get that kind of help. So some things happened in Iraq. They sent me home early, and I got caught up with the wrong crowd.
In Iraq or here?
After I got injured in Iraq, they sent me back stateside to California. So the people that stayed back from Iraq were either getting processed out because they did their time or because they screwed up and was getting out of the Marine Corps other than honorable.
Got it.
Whether it be drugs or
what
have you. So anyway, when I got sent back, I was hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I was supposed to be getting out on a medical discharge. So I screwed up. I ended up smoking some marijuana, with some guys of mine. And, go figure. They had a random drug test.
Got busted.
And all the guys that I was with, they popped. It came positive with marijuana. Mine was the only test that didn't show positive for marijuana. So I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but for me, I was raised with integrity, being honest and being true to who you are. And so I didn't want to live with the guilt of them getting out and me getting away scot-free. So it took me a couple times or a couple days to kind of build
Digest it.
Yeah, to digest, figure out what I'm going to do. So I decided to go and admit to
Being part of it.
yeah, being part of it. You know, and I dealt with the consequences. So instead of getting out with an honorable discharge, I got out with a other than honorable. And at first, I didn't tell anybody that, you know, because I was ashamed. I cared what people thought.
Sure.
And that kind of stuff. But later on, I started kind of opening up to people and telling them the truth. And to me, that was a big
Liberating.
Oh yeah, it took a big weight off my shoulders, and at the same time, it made me realize that it kind of takes a backbone, you know, to even though you know you can get away with it scot free, and your life is going to be a lot easier if you
But
don't
it's
say
not.
anything.
It's hard to sleep, right?
It is.
So add that.
Yeah,
Add that knowing.
right.
You'll never sleep peacefully.
For sure.
Ever again.
For sure. So me trying to hide it, that in itself was hiding, was hitting me pretty hard. And so I finally just came out with it and was like, you know what? If people are going to judge me, I don't give a damn. You know, but at least I try to be, I was raised with to be a man of your word, and handshake has meaning.
Right.
And
I don't care what you do what you say.
Exactly. And so I had that instilled in me pretty hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is what it is. I made a mistake, dealt with the consequences.
You were 21.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, come on.
For sure.
I didn't make any mistakes when I was 21. Just teasing.
Yeah.
Ken, you did. I've seen it all over the news.
All my mistakes are famous.
Anyway, so you get back on your line here. So you
Okay.
get back from the military. You go through some struggles. That lasts till what?
So living with disabilities without any help, that was 10 years.
So 31.
Yep. I got, trying to get help from the VA because of my discharge that I got.
Right.
It was rejection after rejection after rejection for, 10 years or so. I met this great guy. I'm gonna dime him out. Dan Murchie.
Okay. Got it.
So he's at Salt Lake City VA. Anyway, he looked at my case and he was like, "Man, this is, especially being a Marine. I love my Marines. I'm gonna help you out." And he stuck his neck out there. He did everything possible, and he made everything work. He made everything line up. And there's a lot of times where I wanted to just bag it, because all these veterans, they know how hard it is to deal with the VA. They don't. I always say the VA, giving a second chance to die for your country. Even though the VA has come a long way, they have come a long way, but it's still difficult.
Right.
So anyway, so he helped me out. Ever since then, I was kind of able to get a little bit of a foot forward, and that's when I started going through anger management. Went through anger management for 9 months. Went through some other kind of like psychological help, seeing a therapist, that kind of stuff.
PTSD stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I did group therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Was able to have a lot of other veteran peers around me that were kind of struggling with the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first went in, I was like, okay, this ain't gonna help. This is baloney. So I actually left. A couple years went by, and I decided to go ahead and fully give it a try. Jump both feet in. Really wanted to make a change. Really needing change, and jump both feet in and took it serious. And from there, it's been great. I still struggle. I still have things that I deal with, but seeing where I was to where I am now, completely different.
Completely.
Because now I'm always wanting to progress. Always wanting to make myself better. I'm a barber now. I've been barbering for 3.5 years. Currently thinking about buying the shop that I've worked at for 3.5 years. I've gotten the opportunity to purchase the shop. On top of that, I'm looking to get an app built with an idea of mine with me and a buddy being business partners.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I have a comb that I invented that I also would like to bring to market too. Of course, when I first get into it, I'm not gonna know my head from my ass. I'm gonna have to figure it out, piece it together, figure out what works, what doesn't. I'm gonna make mistakes along the way,
Mm-hmm.
but over time, as I learn and progress, It's all going to
It's going to be twice as hard and twice as expensive as you think. So I want to, you got that. That's going to be interesting. And I want to kind of go over some of the ideas.
Definitely.
And part of this podcast was our idea, some of it's like from trauma to triumph. How do we take some of those life lessons or those life experiences that really jack us up, right?
Right.
And then kind of can be the end of some, right? Somebody that you think's on top of the world still may not be. Like that you achieve all these levels of success, and you know, we all digest things different. And here's the thing that's unique here's the thing: everybody, no matter who you are, gets this unique opportunity to get broke down.
Right.
Right. The hard part is how do we get through that, and how do we get through the other side with the lessons learned, built better understanding, better appreciation, right, and then take that opportunity and help teach others. How do we do it, right? At the same time, I want to get back to you. So you're thinking about gents, but when we first started talking, Chris had come up with this really unique comb, and we don't have to go into details because do you have your patent done?
No, I don't.
Okay, so yeah. Anyway, the process of kind of the conversation we went through, he said, hey, I've come up with this unique comb, and he talked about it for a few times before he showed it to me, which understandably so.
Right.
I was wondering, what could you do to a comb, right? I'm like, like, I don't know what this guy's thinking about, but there's a lot of combs out there. And then he showed me it, and I'm like, holy crap, that's a really good idea. And you know, the next question I think was, hey, I need to get a patent. How do I get a design patent? How do I get a utility patent? How do I get a trademark? How do I get a license? How do I start selling it? How do you get to big box? How do we package it? What does this plan look like, right? And so there was a lot of questions going back and forth initially, saying, hey, man, how do I launch it? How long does it take? What type of money am I looking at? How do I get investors? Like, we had this huge, you know, sections of conversations, you know, and I think it's a pretty common question. And unfortunately, there's not enough assets out there to go find it, right? It's really hard to dig in, and nobody wants to help others for whatever reason because they're all self-involved, and we all get that way. And I don't mean that to that. It's just not on purpose. It's just life's demanding, and you end up burying yourself in your own business and forget about helping others.
Well, you know, I think a lot of it too is you're just so dang busy. You know, you're busy, and then you got to have that healthy balance of being with your family and that kind of thing, you know. And I just appreciate you. You know, like I said, I'm blessed to meet you, and
I don't know about that.
I'm so glad to, you know, I'm glad I met you. You know, because you're willing to give me a helping hand and take somebody as green as me, you know, and that has no idea about business.
Sure.
And actually making a jump at it and having you kind of help.
Just kind of give you some pointing directions.
For sure.
Man, you put a lot of pressure, because then what happens if we have mistakes, which you're going to.
Oh, right? Absolutely.
I hope you realize, and I hope you have them fast. And we say this a lot, fast and frequent failures.
Yeah, right.
Fail fast, fail frequent, just so you can learn as fast as you can. Appreciate it. Don't be mad at yourself. Be like, okay, I got that. Okay, now we got to move on. Don't do that again.
Right.
And look past, again, don't let that rear view mirror for your bad decisions overtake your windshield. Always keep an optimistic view to the best of your ability. Take those lessons from yesterday and make better decisions tomorrow. Right. So this comb thing, let's look at the three things, because there's a few things, especially getting it off the ground. It's hard to diversify your attention, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
So you'll have to say, hey, what is the most accessible, or what would be the quickest to market to get a paycheck? So you talked about your comb. You talked about an app, which is a unique app as well. We won't go into detail there because it's still not got anything.
For sure.
But I like the idea. And I think there's some room. And then there's the barbershop, right? Which I think the vibe's great, and I think you can continue with it and add your spin. I think it's a good idea. So looking at it, which one is it that, you know, obviously some of them have timing issues and some of them don't.
Right.
So looking at it, what would you feel like you want to put your focus to first, and how would one serve the other?
Definitely the barbershop first.
Okay, barbershop first, because they want an exit.
Yeah, they want an exit. Plus, there's other lives at stake other than mine. You know,
Yep. How many people are working over there?
So there's 7 barbers total, including myself.
Okay, and how much room is there for others?
I'm going to make room for 1 or 2 more.
That they can have full-time or part-time or fill cells?
Full-time.
Or fill cells. What do they call those? Your little barbershop seats. What do you call those positions?
Just booths.
Just booths. Okay, so fill booths, cells. That makes it sound like I'd go to prison when I get my hair cut. Not true. Anyway, So you have an opportunity for scalability here.
For sure.
Right.
Yep.
And then you're looking at it, and you called me on sometime last week. And we went through some of the basics optically on the top side of what does it look like? What's the debt schedule? What's the acquisitions cost?
Right.
What does the revenue stream look like? What's your bottom line?
Mm-hmm.
And then what does the purchase opportunity look like?
Right.
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 So when we looked at this, it's a barbershop here in Ogden. It's been around for quite a while. I don't know how many years.
6 years.
6 years.
Yep.
But as long as, I haven't been in this area for too long, but as long as I can remember, I've seen their sign on the side.
Yep.
So they have a reputation. They have a pretty good, stable clientele.
Oh, it basically runs itself.
Runs itself, right? So
Yep.
the same people come in and they get their haircut, and all you can do is add to that, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So anyway, the owner wants to exit. He's tired of it. It's hard. It's hard to make a living. It's demanding, right? And he has other visions and goals that he wants to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And he's approached you to look at it, and how do you buy it, right?
Correct.
So the question you asked was, I don't even know how to value this, or I don't know how we would buy it, and here's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
Basically, right?
Exactly.
So when you said, I don't know how do we price this? What does the offer look like? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, hey, what does their net income look like? Well, we can say, hey, if their net income, once we get our financials, we can take some type of multiplier of what's EBITDA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So earnings before income tax, depreciation, and amortization.
Okay.
Right? Which is a long way of saying your net profits and then adding back the stuff that you've depreciated through the process, and then before you paid taxes, right? And before you amortized your equipment out.
Okay.
So the people in business, when they have expensive product or expensive equipment, will take their assets,
okay,
and they'll do an accelerated depreciation at times, which says, hey, I paid $100,000 for this, but I want to depreciate it to zero over the next 3 to 5 years, or 2 to 3 years, depending on how fast the equipment wears out. So that way in 3 years, it's worth zero. So you're able to take that tax discount on an annual basis. So if you have, and we'll say you have a $100,000 piece of equipment on a net income of $100,000, and you want to depreciate this out over 3 years, that means you're going to take off $33,000 of your net income to take it away from the depreciation of your asset. That's a simplified version of what we're doing, right? There's a little bit more complexity to it,
right?
But that gives you what people call the write-off.
So you just take whatever the equipment is, however much you bought it for, and how fast or how long you want to drag that.
Right. And then you take off that percentage every year. Yep. Okay. And then you amortize different things. So, for example, amortizing. You put a $200,000 marketing campaign here. Ken's really good at spending money. So we get a couple $100,000 budget. This ad campaign will run for 2 years. That means we can amortize the cost of this ad campaign over 2 years. Okay. We're going to say, instead of taking a $200,000 ad campaign today, we're going to mark it down over 2 to 5 years, and it'll be $20,000 to $50,000 a year off. So it doesn't hurt my financials near as bad.
Gotcha.
So here we have a depreciation cost of $30,000, and all of a sudden amortization cost of $20,000 that we spread out, and then you have taxes of $20,000 or $30,000. Now it looks like I only made $20,000.
Right. Okay.
But at the end of the day, really, it's $100,000 before you did all these basically book maneuvers. You still have the asset, but you're depreciating it. You have the ad campaign, but you're amortizing it, and then you have a tax base.
So when you say amortization, you're talking about using that as a write-off as well?
Over a period of time. And it's you are using it as a write-off, but let's say, for example, you have a net profit of $100,000, and then you want to do an ad that costs $100,000.
Right.
Well, if you use it all at the same time,
you
have zero net profit for that year.
For sure.
But you want to show some if you can. I mean, sometimes, because you have to show some growth, or you'll want to, especially if you have investors or you have whatever, right? Goals for banking or whatever.
Right.
You'll decide to spread that over a term. Okay. So that way, instead of saying I have a $100,000 ad on a $100,000 profit and I have no money, I'm going to take the next 2 or 3 years to take that off. And so now I made $60,000.
Gotcha.
Does it make sense?
It does.
So all we do with an EBITDA conversation is, look, this net income said you only made $20,000. But you also amortized this much in ads, and you depreciated this much in equipment, and you paid this much in taxes. So we add those equations back in, and we call it $100,000. And then there's a multiplier of that. Now, whatever industry it is, it can be as low as 3.5. And then if you're in SaaS, these guys are getting Qualtrics 1,000 times their net income, right?
So how do you find that number?
It's pretty generalized now.
Okay.
Depending, like a service industry, you're going to be it depends on your area, it depends on growth, but it's 3.5 to 5 times
Okay.
EBITDA,
Gotcha.
not net income. So it's not going to be the 20,000 we just said. It's going to be the 100,000.
Right.
Because you're going to add all those things back in.
Okay.
Right. So at the end of the day, there's an EBITDA line on a set of financials or a net income line. You're going to go off the EBITDA line.
Okay.
Right. And
Right.
there's EBITDA, and then EBITDA. So there's a bunch of different versions of that.
Okay.
So
Obviously, I need to do my research.
yeah, you don't. You just ask the right people because some of it's a big waste of time and it's a false way.
Okay.
There's different ways to sell businesses and buy businesses. There's some that you can sell on a multiplier of earnings, like gross earnings, if you're on a rocket ship that has no net income, right? And then there's ways that, it's an older business, matured, that has net income and it's in a standard industry, then you can use that equation.
Okay.
You can do owner financed, where you can take a multiplier of that and then pay them interest on it and pay them monthly or annually or whatever that term may look like, right? And then there's their debt equation, right? So you have to say, hey, am I buying your debt? Are you taking your debt? Like, I'm going to pay you $100,000 for your business, but that's debt free. Like, you have to keep all your debt and all your liabilities and all that stuff. I'm not acquiring any of it.
Right.
Or if they owe $100,000, you can say, I'm going to pay you $100,000 for your business. I'm going to acquire your debt. And so you're not getting much, but I'm going to just take over all your responsibilities.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
And that's okay too. I just wouldn't take liabilities in the sense of, I don't mean debt liability. I mean risk liability, potential lawsuits or decisions or human resource problems that may have occurred.
Right.
This is just the way I do it. And I'm just learning, right? There's people that have way more experience than me, and there's much more advice. I try to pick my board's brains. I have a really solid board at my fingertips that's been great to help with, and I have a lot of friends that have been extremely successful that I look up to.
Right.
And the worst enemy you can possibly have, and I've failed 2 businesses, right? I've been broke twice. And the worst mistakes I made is I felt like I knew everything.
For sure.
And then I felt like, you know what, Chris, you know what, Jeremy, you don't even know. You've never even cut hair. You have no idea. And so you shrug off people's opinions, or, you know what, Bill, don't talk to me like that. I know everything because I cut hair for this many years. You have no idea. Yeah, you can sell a cup, but you can't sell hair.
Right.
Fine. But then what happens is in the general realm of reality, businesses, if you're making a cup or a mug or a ladder or a door or software, the general principle of business is much the same.
Right.
Right. So we can't discredit some people's advice. So the more open you are to people helping you and asking for help, right, is really the fastest way I was able to start fixing some of those mistakes.
For sure.
But when I was 20 and I started my shed company and I knew everything because I made a good amount of money really, really early, I thought, you can't teach me anything. Look at you. You have Velcro shoes on. Like, I know everything, and look at me. I'm 20 years old and I've done this and I'm hitting high numbers, and you're just a banker, right? And bottom line is that just a banker's seen a lot of things that maybe what feels condescending to you when they're telling you this bad news, like you're declined, or I'm not giving you a debit card, or all the things that I've had.
Right.
Sometimes it's worth just sitting back and not taking offense, like what we were joking about earlier with everyone else.
Yep.
And just saying, hey, this isn't at me. This is for me. Right. And then you can ask the banker in the same sentence and say, okay, I understand all that. I got declined and I had this. Now, can you help guide me on what it's going to take to be accepted or be approved?
For sure.
And then if he says this is what it's going to take, the next question would be, great, over the next several months while I work towards that goal, would you mind if I check in with you once a month with my progress? And then you could help me keep directing my course so I can make sure you're my banker and I get approved.
Right.
Well, immediately he's going to know you respect him. You're going to have a mentor, and you're going to know the goalpost.
For sure.
It's not going to be moving.
Well, even future transactions, or find another business or
and
whatever.
Guess what they love? They trust you.
Exactly.
Because you know what? They know that you're not being arrogant. They know that you're going to be pliable and malleable and teachable, and that you're going to execute their lessons, right? Because they can follow through what they've been telling you all the way through. They can say, hey, look, I asked him to do this and he did it. I asked him to do this and he did it. And after a few years of this practice with this banker or this individual, if a business owner or whoever it is, investor, you can prove to them that they can trust to give you more fuel. It may seem insulting with a 0 and a no. And then the next time it may be insulting with $5,000. And then the next time it may be insulting with $20,000.
Right.
But then all of a sudden you're at 200 and 500 and $1.5 million and $5 million. And it's like, oh, wow. Why? Because you built your reputation and trustworthiness and your teachability and your what's the word I'm looking for? Your non-arrogance. I don't know what I'm looking for. What's the word, Ken?
Humility.
Humility. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's hard for me to find that word.
Some of us know that word.
You're such a douchebag. I don't know why I love you so much. It's weird.
It is very
It is
strange.
super weird. Anyway, Democrats. Just kidding. So that's kind of the idea on the salon. So where you sit right now, we kind of had a phone call the other day. You wanted to ask me. I said, hey, let's just do this tomorrow or the next day on the podcast. What's the latest? You don't have to go through detailed numbers because I think some of that's private, but you could kind of do it if you want. It's totally up to you.
So, I was just trying to crunch numbers on my own with kind of what I know. And,
Okay.
But I wanted to kind of get more in depth with you,
Sure.
to have you help me to see if I'm on the right track as far
Okay.
as, crunching numbers. And
So do you
that kind
just
of
high
stuff.
level rounding around the gross revenue for the company?
Let me pull it up real quick.
Okay. So while he does that, Chris, I as funny as this sounds, I'm going to talk about his comb. I see this vision of this comb, which is freaking super cool, by the way. Dumb sounding that a comb's cool, but I mean, it was super creative. I just see this awesome looking packaging and story that goes behind it so people can use it. Anyway, I'm excited about that too. But I think you're exactly right when you're saying, hey, man, I want to go through the barbershop first. Obviously, there's a time is of essence thing. You have a lease expiring in September.
Right.
You need to be able to come in and say, hey, owners of this barbershop, this is what I'm willing to do. This is how I'm going to do it. This is how we'll execute it.
Right.
And then you have to go talk to the landlord so you can maintain your footprint and not have to move because that's 90% of it.
Right.
Right. That's your brand.
Yep. So according to the owners that own it now, they spoke with the landlords. I haven't had a chance to speak with them yet, but they're also talking about throwing around the idea of selling. So I may have the opportunity to also buy the building as well as buying the business itself. So,
well, so this is pretty good numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now, it's looking like from 2019 to 2020, they grew roughly 20%.
Right.
Right, in COVID.
Right.
And then currently through mid-year, you're at 50%, or you're at almost going to double last year.
For sure. Yeah.
So they're doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where a lot of people come out and say, hey, this is where I want to scale, or I can't handle the crunch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that they can't handle it, but it's a lot of stress.
For sure.
Growing at a rate of 50%. It was 20% last year, and it looks like it's going to 50% scale this year.
Right.
That's stressful.
For sure.
That's a big growth pattern.
Yeah.
And it's the good thing is it's service related. It's no COG. There's some COG, I guess, cost of goods.
Yeah.
You've got some different things, but it's not a ton,
Yeah.
right?
Just product and
Just some product, and
right.
most of it's just labor related. They're using, which is odd, an industry valuation of 30% of gross earnings is what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
didn't you just say that was 3 to 5%?
no, so gross earnings multipliers are different, and I don't know if a gross earnings multiplier is the right thing to use in this industry. I may be completely wrong. I haven't looked at buying, barbershops.
Right. So this is where I wanted you to kind of help me out as far as like the fine details, that kind of stuff,
Sure, they're calling out. They have a good detail of net assets, which is 85/25. It looks like currently they're using retail value,
Mm-hmm.
not used value, or are they using a used value?
Retail. I believe.
Yeah, because that looks like a brand new price tag on most of this stuff.
See, I'm a small brain kind of guy, man. I'm still trying to learn the lingo. I'm still trying to learn, when I look at it, I just see numbers, add and subtract, and you can kind of obviously see growth when the number gets bigger.
So let's see.
So I'm real small brain. You know, I want to get big brain.
Well, and I wouldn't call it small brain, big brain. I'd say just not taught, not lot. You haven't learned it yet. It just takes time.
Right. So you were talking about the equipment. You were asking if it was retail or
Right.
Yeah. So I believe that's retail what they bought it for.
Okay. So
obviously there's depreciation on that.
You got it.
You know.
Look at you go.
And so because it's been
older.
used for 6 years.
Right.
You know.
So they should have depreciated it to zero.
Gotcha.
Right. I'm sure their tax accountant.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So if they were to depreciate it, you know, and have it to zero, for instance, if I was to sell it on to somebody else, do I sell it like they're doing? You know,
Sure.
for the retail price that they bought it for?
Not retail. Like obviously it's going to be whatever you can buy it for on KSL. Otherwise you don't want it.
Gotcha.
Right.
Makes sense.
So there's nothing wrong with them asking a price, even if they depreciated to zero. So at the end of the year, obviously those CNCs that we have out there in our factory, they've been depreciated all the way out, but they're working every day. They're still cutting doors. They're still doing everything that they do.
Right.
So there's still a value there, but you know, according to the books, they're not worth anything anymore.
Okay.
So we've depreciated them to zero. So Ken could come in and buy them for 10 grand. Well, according to our books, that's just a straight $10,000 lift.
I guess that's just common sense, you know. It's the same thing with a car, you know. You go to buy a used car that's got more miles on it, obviously the price
got to be worth less. Yeah. So let's go through what this says. So completed. So what they've did in revenue, and we won't talk about the exact numbers, has grown from 2019 to 2020 at 20%, and then year to date they're up 50%. They've already almost done what they did last year in 2020. So here we are in the middle of July with still 5 months of opportunity left. So if we were to keep this growth pattern up, we should come close to doubling last year's gross revenue.
It's fantastic.
Right? That's great.
Right.
The issue, and when I say I'm looking at these numbers, they have the way that they've been submitted is he has gross revenue, and then he does an industry valuation, and then which is a multiplier of a percentage. So taking last year's gross revenue, well, actually he took the numbers combined, all of them together, and said, hey, this is our average annual revenue. And he multiplied that by a percentage and came with an asset value. So he's saying, hey, I want this much money, right? And then here's the value of assets, the market value of assets, which he's using retail value.
Right.
Which is incorrect, right? I mean, I guess it could be correct. If you're willing to pay retail, it's worth that. So the reason he has this colored, I'd assume, is saying, hey, I don't want your assets, take it out. Right? Then he could zero that number out.
Well, yeah, I definitely don't want to pay full price, you know, now that I know I can buy it at.
Well, maybe you could go through this shopping list. He's detailed this shopping list. He has all the assets declared with the price tag behind it. You could go through and say, I like that, I'll give you this much, and maybe you pop up this open cell next to what he's asking and then put offer.
Okay.
I'll give you $10 for this one, $25 for this one, $200 for that one, but I'm not paying you $1,000 for a chair that's 6 years old.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
And so then he also has a list of monthly expenses here. So he goes through his rent, he goes through his power, he goes through his rugs, he goes through his security and his insurance, and then his app that they use to book it with. Right.
Correct.
And then he comes back in his business license, and then his, his LLC registration information, and then he takes his annual costs and he multiplies that, or monthly cost multiplies it out to an annualized rate, and then he shows what the booth rent revenue looks like. So what he hasn't declared here on this summary is he shows gross revenue, which is tickets, top line revenue, meaning all barbers together, combined total in sales and haircuts and whatever else they've done. And he's declared that, and then he shows booth rents, but he doesn't show what are those guys getting percentage-wise of gross, and then he doesn't take out his top line, subtract what he's paying out, and show us a net line minus costs. So we have net margin.
So you're talking about for individual barber, what their income is bringing in?
I don't
Is that what
really,
you're talking about?
not individual level, but I need a line that says, hey, this is how much we paid all the barbers.
So, it's how it works and where we're at is they pay booth rent. So it's $175 a week.
Okay.
I just gave
That's
numbers.
okay.
So it's $175 a week, $700 a month.
Got it.
And so whatever's left, you know, after paying booth rent is all money in their pocket. So we, you know, at the barbershop, we don't pay them a wage. It's whatever they make on their haircuts on their own.
Okay, so you don't give a percentage of your haircuts.
No.
You just pay rent.
Yep.
Okay. So then truly.
Because then some barbershops run it that way. That's called commission.
Sure.
So you have a booth rent and you have commission. So some barbershops strictly go off of commission. They, the barber pays a percentage off of each service they do. And then you also have booth rent where you just pay a monthly rent.
So his valuation is completely useless then, because top line does not matter.
Okay.
Does that make sense? He's giving a top line valuation, and I may be completely wrong, and I hope people comment and say that I am. But from what I'm looking at is at $175 a month, right, is what they're taking per booth fee. But they have a gross top line revenue piece. But when it comes to the business, it's irrelevant to their net income, right? So let's say if they did $1 million in haircuts, but they only have 7 people paying $700 a month, it doesn't matter that they did $1 million in haircut. It only matters that they have 7 times 700,
right?
$4,900 a month.
Yes.
Minus $1,200, they're only making $3,500 a month.
Correct.
So they could have whatever they want in top line, unless they're making commissions off it.
Yeah.
It's not part of the factor. It shouldn't be, and they're trying to use that.
Yeah.
As their multiplier, which it shouldn't be.
So as a barbershop owner, realistically, the best way to make money being a barbershop owner is commission.
Well,
Having you
100%.
guys on commission.
Sure.
By far, hands down, that's how you're going to make money.
Right.
When you're doing strictly booth rent, it's near impossible.
Well, then you're just a landlord, right?
Exactly.
So what I would say here is this is noise. So if I was to meet with you and you were trying to sell me your hair salon,
right,
I would go out and say, I don't care about these numbers.
Right.
These numbers are irrelevant.
Big fancy numbers, yeah.
Don't care.
Right.
Your assets overpriced. Looks like you make $4,000 a month in rent. You have this much money in cost. My net income's $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year.
Right.
Plus anything else, right, which isn't disclosed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's this other big number they have over here. Doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely bare bone,
Yeah. Well,
and
I don't know how you come to this is noise. I don't know how you have a nice conversation at the sit down table and say, hey, look, this stuff doesn't matter. I think you just have to say your gross revenue is this, which is monthly rents times 12. Your annual net income is monthly rents times or minus costs,
right,
times 12, and then you have your net income.
Yep.
Right.
And so that's I've got that number.
You do.
And so now I'm just asking you is
how would you value it?
Yeah, based on what you're seeing. Is it? Let me ask you flat out: would it be something that?
Oh yeah. Well, anytime you can have a positive cash flow,
like you were saying, even though if you're positive $1,
yeah, you can do it all day.
Yeah.
Right. So here's what I look at it, just like you do in real estate, right? You look at undervalued rents, right, or underoccupied space,
right,
and you'd say, hey, look, there's an opportunity for me to do some increase in rents eventually, and then there's some more space that we can give, so I can make more gross by getting more barbers renting booths,
right,
and I can change the structure to a rent times commission, right? That you have a management fee and you supply the product and you sell the product to your supplier or to the people inside. There's a lot of opportunity for income, right? So a lot of the big box retailers say they use their customer base as an opportunity for income, and they use their vendors as an opportunity for income. Right. So you could do the same thing. You'd say, look, my walk-ins, I'm going to make commissions off of them, and then my vendors have to buy these different things from me, or my barbers. So you could take that and make it so now on the top line, if you were even making a 10% commission rate, you've just more than doubled your net income.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
You could say, look, every haircut you have, it's $4. Right? But then you have to offer a service in exchange.
Okay.
Right? They come into a spotless, clean shop and they do this, and they don't have to. It's wipe their hands and they walk away.
Okay.
Or whatever it may look like, whatever the model may be.
Right.
But I would say, hey, if this was a building opportunity, which you kind of look at it because it's really just a landlord and tenant. Yeah. Right. I would say, look, I have some space additional space I can rent, and there's an opportunity for increase.
So as what I was thinking is, because I've been working with this group of barbers for a couple of years now.
Sure.
And for me to want to change it on them is kind of difficult for me just because we've established a good relationship and that kind of thing. And I understand business is business, you know.
I wouldn't say it that way. I would say it's a presentation of like, look, we want to keep gents. I need your buy-in.
Okay.
Right? So here's what I'd have to do in order to make this work.
Okay. Well, even if it's been working for 6 years, you know.
But it isn't because he's exiting.
Oh, true.
See what I mean?
Yep.
It isn't working.
Very
he
likely.
wants out.
Okay.
So
Makes
obviously
sense.
because the net margin isn't as good as it should be for the effort that he has to put in.
Right.
So in order for you to stay interested, you have to be able to have an opportunity to make margin, which keeps you interested. Right?
Gotcha.
So you sit down with your group of barbers before you'd even try to execute a purchase to make sure they're not caught surprised. It's just clear, transparent, direct conversation. Like, look, this gents doesn't make money for the landlord. It doesn't make it. Well, it does. It's making money, but it's not enough to keep someone interested in it, obviously.
For sure.
So what I'm proposing is instead of charging $25 for a haircut, we charge $27.50 for a haircut.
So prices are I'm already going to be raising prices.
So it's irrelevant to raise prices if you don't make a part of it.
For sure.
Otherwise, it just hurts you and helps them.
Right.
So
Okay.
we raise prices and say, hey, look, it's not going to affect your direct net income today. We can raise it to 30, but I'm charging 10% commission. I have to.
Okay.
In order to keep this going. I have some goals and I'm going to make my improvements. And you can say, look, and then you tell them I'm making this much money right now with, or barbers, this gents is making this much money. Clearly depicted and show them this isn't enough to deal with this stress and the risk. One wrong thing makes me go broke.
Right.
So in order to keep me interested and reinvest in the property and get you an air conditioner, in order for me to afford this, I have to make another roll. So what I'm proposing is we raise our prices this much. I need at least 10. I would go for 15 to 20%.
Okay.
Commission. I would start high and then work down and find a middle ground.
Okay.
I would swing at 20 more than likely and say, look, I need to make on a $30 haircut. I need to make $6.
Okay.
And I know that hurts, but your net income is going to be the same because I'm going to do it in price increases. And then here's what I'm going to do with that money. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to advertise, and I'm going to push for new clients. And I'm going to take care of your traffic to the best of my ability.
Right.
I'm going to add another booth. I'm going to repair and remodel and print and make and beautify. Right.
Right.
And then I want you guys to buy my product.
Right.
I'm going to become a distributor for some different product lines. You need to go in and buy the products from me.
Okay.
I'm asking you to please tell me what you want, and then I will buy this at wholesale, and then I'll sell them to you.
Okay.
And then that'll be the same for you. It won't make any difference to your barbers, but this just help them understand it helps your top line.
Right.
Which then helps build your business, right? So every revenue opportunity that you have inside, combs, product, aprons, everything that could possibly be an opportunity, you have your own store in your space for them.
Okay.
So then that only helps your top line.
Right.
Right. And then you look for cost improvements, right? And sometimes it has to do with new equipment that doesn't break down as much. So that way your uptime's better. And it's just really doing the best you can to see where your opportunities lie. Well, I can tell you right now, they made and by the time we were done, I'd take it and your barbers wouldn't know anything.
Serious.
Simple.
See, this goes to show how small brain I am.
So here's how. You got $150,000 in net right now, or in gross revenue. We take a 20% of that. That's 30 grand. It's forward looking to 300, which is 60 grand.
Right.
On top of 24,000, on top of product that he closes out at 20,000, which you pull in another 20% on, that's 4,000. And so here we take a $1 business in net profits, turn it to $, and it affects no one but your paying customer.
Right.
And all that's going to happen is uptime goes up, convenience goes up, equipment goes up, cleanliness goes up, expectations go up, customer satisfaction goes up because they're feeling everything that you're doing anyway.
For sure.
It's worth an extra $5 if the chairs are new, it's comfortable, it's got some stuff, I got battery charge stuff, whatever it may be that they may need convenience wise.
Right.
That you hit it.
Right.
Right. So you walk into a place that you feel exclusive in it. you're willing to pay a little more for it. I mean, a shave and a haircut's not cheap already. It's what, $50, $45?
$40.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it's not like it's on sale.
Right.
So what's $45? If I'm willing to pay 40, I'm willing to pay 45 or 50.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you tip out, it's 50 something, right?
Right.
So all I'm saying is sometimes we get so focused. Price is important, right? But it's two-sided. Price is important if it's cheap. If you want it cheap, you'll get cheap.
Right.
But if you want quality, it's going to cost you, and you're going to have every service, but don't take advantage of it. Like I would say, you could take a $40 haircut to $50 haircut. They come in, they have a bottle of water, they have whatever. It's right there. They sit where somewhere comfortable. It's really clean. It's super appreciative, and like, hey, sir, here's this. I mean, you would feel like, hey, you know, do the best you can that people know their names. Here's what's coming. Have it on the board. Hey, are you Mr. Barker? Yeah, come on in. Hey, we got a seat for you. Here's this. Would you like a bottle of water?
Yeah.
Right. It costs you 60 cents. All of a sudden, you feel like you're a kingpin.
For sure.
Everybody knows who's coming in because they see it.
It's the little things.
They got their picture, right? We know. It's the little things that we pay for. And then you're willing to do it. Well, now would I say, is gents worth it? No, it's absolutely not worth what they're asking, because they're taking a multiplier of top line, which is gross revenue of barbers, which is completely irrelevant to their revenue income, or their income, right? It's completely irrelevant. It's like saying, hey, McDonald's made $3 million last year. Okay, good. But you're only charging $24,000 in rent. So what does McDonald's matter to me? Their top line doesn't matter. You don't get any of it anyway.
Right.
So why are you even telling me what your top line is?
So, for instance, a new guy like me that doesn't have a guy like you to kind of help him out, if somebody was to look at buying a business, you know, what's the best way for them to kind of figure out what they need to be looking at? You know, because for me, when I looked at the big numbers,
you got all giddy.
Come to find out,
they're not yours.
Irrelevant, you know. So for somebody else that's maybe watching that's kind of going through the same thing, how do they learn or kind of figure that out on their own?
Find mentors.
Find a mentor.
The most important thing you could possibly do is to find a mentor that's willing to talk to you. And I promise them, what's one of the most powerful words in the English language? Help.
Right.
Help me. What are you going to do? You can hate my guts. If I reached out and said, Chris, I need your help, you don't care. You're running over, right? So if you find successful individuals that are really good at what they do in whatever form that they're in, and they say, hey, man, can you help me? I really respect what you're doing. How would you look at this? And I would not just ask one, I'd ask 50, as many as you possibly can,
right?
Because then you're going to get different perspectives from everyone, right?
For sure.
But in business, we can get all tied up in this big number, right? This company, what you're working at, especially if you have scalability, right? The opportunity to add more booths and add more revenue, not just on the rent line. That's an important one.
Right.
But on the commission line, which is even more important. But as you look at these opportunities for additional seats and expansion and being able to add booths and building an incredible brand, and then you have an opportunity where potentially that they may be willing to sell a building that you could fill up with that, with the right brand and some power that could present something that seems, you know, better than the dollar cuts, right? And nothing against dollar cuts, because I went their way, right before you, as you mentioned.
Right.
Like, who cut your hair last, dude? I'm like, the dollar cuts place, man. Right? So I just wanted to go there because Scott, I think he came back in with a really cool shave, and I'm like, dude, who does your thing? He goes, I go over here, and I went, and I saw the price. I'm like, oh, damn, that's expensive, and then he did a good job, so I came back.
Awesome.
Because I'm cheap.
So,
right?
So even though you thought of it, you know, it was expensive
at first,
you know, but then, you know,
service.
But then we were talking about raising the price, you know.
Okay,
so,
fine.
So with you kind of thinking it was expensive in the beginning, you know.
So there's always an investment to your first customer is what I would look at.
Okay.
So to get off topic of a purchase, but when I would say, hey, your front number may be expensive, right? So I would use a business about a referral program.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That would come in and say, hey, look, your first cut's 50% off.
Okay.
Or free.
This is that program you was talking about.
Right.
That,
so whatever the value is, right, you say, hey, I'm going to be giving you a discount. So if you refer your customer, a first-time customer only, they can come in and get a haircut for nothing, or they can get a shave for free with the haircut, or whatever you decide to do to show what your guys' skill set is and the experience that they receive. So they go in your app that you guys use to book. They put it in. you know who's coming. You perfect the art of your customer reception.
Mm-hmm.
This is how a customer is received. This is how they're accepted and admitted into the sitting and waiting period.
Right.
And this is how they're treated in the waiting period. And then they go sit down, and then this is the expectation of the haircut, and this is what the exit looks like.
Okay.
When you exit them out the door.
Right.
So you change the dynamic of the whole process
Right.
to where people feel like they're a kingpin.
Mm-hmm.
The first time they go from a dollar cuts or sports cuts or whatever to you guys, they go, holy crap, that was like $10 more. They don't know the first cost, right? It's half.
Right. Right.
But they go in, right? They own the experience, and then
Right.
they tell their friends about the experience.
For sure.
And so all of a sudden, then they have a referral coupon code to give to someone else,
Right.
right? That they can get someone else into your door as well.
That'd
So
be
then
awesome.
it just is this dynamic growth, self-feeding machine that your marketing costs are nil. You're
Right.
getting a 50% off haircut or a free shave or whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get a new customer with it. And then after that, your new customer gets a discount line or a free drink or a free cookie every time they come in, right? Like, hey, look, yeah, the cost is this, and you're making something special for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe it's your custom comb, maybe it's whatever, right? You can come up with something that's just strictly unique
Okay.
for you.
Right.
But with this, I see I guess I see a whole collection of low-hanging fruits.
Mm-hmm.
It would be an easy conversation to talk about their top line. They're obviously proud of it because it's the first part of their financials.
Right.
But I'd have to tell them, look, I understand that there's a top line here, but how does that impact your net revenue?
Mm-hmm.
They're really the conveyor, so they get it in their account, they deposit it through, right?
Right.
Am I right?
Right.
Or does it go to your Venmo direct
As far as
for your hair? When I pay you,
yeah,
does it go to you?
it does.
It doesn't go to the.
No.
So then, how do they know top line?
They gather numbers from Booksy basically on the growth of clientele that was coming in.
Got it.
So obviously.
So that's only a Booksy number. It's not real.
correct. Yeah. So
that has to change.
So Booksy, they bring it in. How many appointments over the year?
And then you choose beard and you choose hair. But if someone decides to add a shave and you do it, it's not on Booksy anymore.
No.
So those aren't real.
I mean, I do have a question here. Could you kind of take that top line number and sort of figure out what the clientele is? Because I feel like half the battle with this kind of business is your location and traffic and things like that. So there is a value to the top line just in terms of getting a sense of how many customers might be visiting the store. Obviously, you'd have to just
you're
change the
100%
model.
right. I don't mean that they're not irrelevant. That is a relevancy in the sense of what the velocity of your customer is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 100% correct. Sorry, I didn't mean to discredit that top line in that regard because it is. You're right.
Well, I just wouldn't want to discourage them because if they do have like pretty regular.
Oh, they're pretty
clientele,
good.
then all you have to do then is just convert it from that rental
Average
model
ticket price
to commission, and you've already made a big step.
Yeah. So
Ken, and then he comes from the back corner and bam,
yeah, no kidding.
Mike drops it.
I'm a closet capitalist.
Boy, I'd say for being a left-wing Democrat, where did this capitalism come from? Anyway, so he has a really good point. We could take your average cost per haircut and beard and shave, whatever the average ticket price is, divide that out off top line and tell you what your customer velocity is and see what your capacity is, right?
Awesome.
What does your velocity look like?
Right.
But at the same time, to Ken's point, I would say that your payment platforms would have to change. They'd have to process through a center payment platform, and I would pay your people every day so they don't notice any difference.
Okay.
Right? There needs to be some type of ability to you could Venmo them all out at the end of day off tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They go in, they enter their name, they check out, and then at the end of the day, religiously pay them. So it makes no difference to them.
So just kind of clear this up for me. Why would you do it that route rather than?
So I can get my commissions first.
Oh, gotcha.
You don't get to choose. I need to know exactly what was processed, so you don't do the beard and it only shows the haircut on Booksy.
Right.
I need 100% I need 100% visibility so I can see true top line.
Okay.
So I get true commissions.
Right.
It's not going to be malleable. That they don't get, maybe they get a cash tip and that's fine.
Right.
Or they get a cash payment, that's fine. But the cash payment has to occur at the register.
Okay.
And it just has to. And I would make sure that as long as your customer, you wouldn't care. Like if your guys are, because you're paying a processing fee. So one of the benefits that you could pitch is I'm paying your processing fee.
Okay.
I'm charging a commission rate. Inside this is clean boost, this new equipment. I pay your processing fee. I do all this. So you're not discounting processing fees.
Right.
You're just capturing total gross revenue and dispersing it at the end of day.
Okay.
But you have to do EOD because that's what they're used to.
Right.
Or end of day.
Right.
They got to get paid every day.
Okay.
So you just never change that. You say, hey, look, you're actually going to get a raise right out the gate because you're not paying your Venmo processing fee or whatever it may be.
Right.
I don't know what it is, if there is much, but I would just own it all and make sure that they understand that it has to occur here.
Okay.
It can't be on your phone and it can't be Venmo, and I'd have cameras and I'd make sure you talk to your people. And as long as you show that the benefits are better than the police state, right? It's not that you're trying to be the policeman,
right,
but it's because I am forecasting all this stuff to your benefit, to our benefit, not just yours. I mean, selfishly, it is to improve the image and the look and the equipment and the feel so you can come into a place with pride.
Right.
And your customers have a place with pride. But the only way I can do that is I will take this money and reinvest it for the first year.
Okay. So when you buy a new business, how do you know if you need to like revamp the look on the inside or whatever?
Well, it needs it.
Was that?
It needs it.
Well, yeah, the shop definitely needs it, but for anybody else,
How do you know?
Yeah,
don't put rose-colored glasses on.
Okay.
There's a saying that Mark Kendall told me when he walked my shop one day, and he said, hey, man, your centers look good, but your corners are awful, just the dirt. And he goes, remember, here's something. If you take care of the corners, the center will take care of itself. So you can use that in every point of life, right? You can say, hey, man, we sweep stuff to the outside, and as long as our front yard looks good, it doesn't matter what our backyard looks like.
Right.
Or the corners of the closets or the corners. And out in our shop, I try to make sure people blow out every corner and we clean our corners, because if it ends up in the middle, guess what? That's easy to clean. But as long as the corners are clean and the shelves are clean, then the center will be clean.
Right.
Just automatically. Same goes for business, right? So if you walk in and you say, hey, look, what does it look like? Well, maybe the main walkway and the chairs look nice, but what does the back closets look like?
Sure.
And so you'll know, like, how old is it? Is this something I would want to introduce to my favorite, to my wife, to my kids, to my favorite, whatever? How would I feel if the guy I respect the most walked in the door, or the woman, right?
Right.
Would I feel pride, or would I feel like, oh, I'm a little bit embarrassed of that?
Right.
Right. So and obviously you don't have to fix everything that first day. Just have a goal, right? Obviously most, especially young entrepreneurs, there's not really a lot of capital there unless they come from family, friends, fools, or family. What do they say? Family, friends, or fools, right?
Yeah.
They get their money from. So if they have a lot of money, then that's fine. And unfortunately it blinds some of that, and we can plug problems or fix problems with money, but it doesn't really fix the problem. You can just try to plug that hole with more cash.
Yeah.
And all it does is make the hole bigger.
So when you're budgeting your money, because obviously you don't want to sink your business in the beginning, how do you budget out for, do you take out a certain percentage for revamping the shop, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So all those, right? So you'll say, hey, this is my top line. This is what it's going to cost me for all these. He's done a good job of defining his monthly costs. So this is that. So here's what else is left, right?
Right.
And this is what I need to do. And then same as when we decided what's the priority of which business, right? You'd say, what's the most important thing we need? Well, right now you guys need air.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So then I would say, hey, look, my first thing I'm going to do is I need to price out some air conditioning.
Okay.
So my barbers are really comfortable. I need them to come into work, be comfortable. The more comfort they are, then they're going to last longer at work.
Plus customers as well,
and the customers too, but employees first.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, and that's one thing we have a hard time is we think the customers first, and I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
Employees will take care of your customer if you take care of them. So that's another cliche thing, but it's a true dynamic. We've always said, hey, my customer's always right. I completely disagree. Customers aren't always right. I think customers are generally right, but they're not always right. But, I think same thing for you guys. When you go into your shop and you're looking at what needs to be fixed and what could be better, then you can really go in and say, like, I need this, 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 and this. And then you put a priority list. Like this month with this month's money, I'm going to forecast this opportunity. And as long as you are clear, and maybe you do a weekly, bi-weekly, or a monthly, or excuse me, bi-monthly or a monthly meeting with your barbers, you can go in and say, hey, everyone, if they feel some type of equity in it, in the sense that they see the transparency of what your numbers look like. We share all our numbers with everybody, right, Ken? That everybody gets a set of financials if they ask. Doesn't matter if you're in packaging, if you're Ken. Just kidding. But they all get them.
I'm always giving him heck about redistributing the wealth he's collecting to the rest of the, it's.
And we do.
Socialism. Socialism. Communism.
Ken. Anyway, so, but we try to share it with them so they can see the effect they have. But then at the same time, we go through the budgets and we say, Ken's really good about his and says, look, we've saved here, here, and here. This is what I'm looking to do with the extra. So this is my goal. Okay, great. Let's do that. And so if your employees, or we would say partners, I guess, inside your barbershop, that they can see what you're doing with it, they have transparency to it, and you are doing what you say.
Right.
If you miss a gross revenue line or a net margin line where you don't have the money, then you can explain why. And I would just show a reconciliation of your month, as easy as that, and just say, look, here's the deal. We were shooting for a $10,000 month in gross margin, and then we had our costs, and that was going to be $7,000, but we only did $6,000. So all I have is $2,000. So the goal for the $4,000 thing is going to have to move a month.
Right.
But this is why.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
And I think as long as you do that, people have buy-in because they just trust what you're doing. And as long as the ironic part about our number sharing is they get it, they receive it. And the majority of the people I ask if they've gone through it is no. But just knowing they have the opportunity to review it anytime they want gives them a sense of trust,
right? Just
because it's at their fingertips. And never, ever, ever cheat your numbers.
Right. Right.
Just be honest, because you'll get caught. And then again, you're staying in bed, and you already know, you're just like me, it's hard enough to sleep at night. The last thing you need is like, oh, dude, I hit $1,000 off the line. They will find out, and it may just come from you in a slip.
Right, right.
So just don't. It's just so much easier. I don't do my numbers. I have Sandra do them. She's a kingpin at them. I see them at the same time as other people see them. So it's not like, oh, wait, don't show that to everybody.
So I was going to ask you, when you're reconciling numbers and, keeping track of everything, is there like a software, or is there a system that you can get that kind of helps with that?
Yeah, the most common one, like QuickBooks or Peachtree.
Okay.
QuickBooks is simple, and it's got some good ones. There's some online services. You can do it from your phone. You can see revenue. There's some good ones for checkout, for cashiers. I would look at some ERPs or whatever kind of process, I don't know what they call it, payment platforms that are good for barbershops, and I'm sure there is some that you could reach out to and find that would be able to do a commission base. You won't have to rewrite
right.
I mean, this is an old story, right? So you'd be able to, you won't have to rewrite the whole storyline.
Okay.
So anyway, I think, to answer your question, for people that are looking at those opportunities, how do you sit down and do it? Then the question is, okay, let's say hypothetically that these people want $50,000 for their business, right?
Right.
So you'd say, okay, $50,000, and it may seem fair. Maybe that is fair, right? If that's their net margin, okay, well, now it's $50,000. Well, if you were like me as a firefighter, or you like a barber or Ken or someone, $50,000, unless you have some equity to pull from, is not just small change.
Right.
Right. It's really hard to find $50,000 when you have no business experience and you have no credit in small business. And the SBA is kind of fake. It's Small Business Administration, but it's really hard to get money from them if you're a small business, unless you have a history of like 18 months and all this other bull crap that comes with it. And it's not, I mean, they have some, sure, but I mean, the difficulty of $50,000 is not as easy as just going, hey, look, I'm just going to go get an SBA loan. It'll be easy.
Right.
It's not quite. And everything's hard that's worthwhile, so keep that in mind. So what are the pathways, and what are ways that you can get it paid for? How do we come up with $50,000 on, Ken wants to sell me his business and I want to buy it, and it's $50,000. How do I get it?
Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes. This is what I want to know.
Yep. This is how do we get there?
Right.
Ideas. What do you got? So what do you have cash ready? And I mean, you don't have to be exact, but let's say, okay, I got this much money I can deploy.
Right.
Make it up. What is it?
Couple grand.
Okay. I've got $2,000. So I have 48,000 to go.
Right.
All right. So how do I come up with 48,000? So now I call my mom. Well, my mom's been a single mom the majority of my life.
Uh-huh.
She's stolen salt and pepper shakers and silverware from the Denny's. So guess what? Probably not there.
Right.
Right. So I'll call my dad. Well, my dad didn't hardly pay child support, let alone have extra money for me.
Right.
So probably not going to work.
So investors?
Friends. Chris, I need 48 grand.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? You got it?
No.
Okay. So negative, right? The large majority, and the reality is the large majority of our direct friends, especially at your age group, 33 years old is still young. Not very many people have 50 grand saved. So the next question would be in-laws. Well, you don't have any, right? Are you married? Yeah, you're married.
I am.
Yeah, so that's a hard conversation, right?
Sure.
So let's say in this scenario, hypothetically, your in-laws do have some money.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to give it to you.
Right.
Okay, that's great. But what does it look like? How do they own it? What do they own? Are you paying them back, or is it an equity position? Is it an equity position with payback, which sucks balls?
So what is that?
So equity would be if you have 100% of a barbershop, and let's say it's worth 50 grand.
Okay.
And they are giving you 48,000 of it, but they don't know anything about barbershop.
Right.
Right. I would approach it like this. I would say, look, there's several ways I'd approach this. There's a lot of different opportunities. Okay. I would say, hey, mother-in-law and father-in-law, I have this opportunity for a barbershop. I know you have a little bit of money. I know that it's your nest egg for your future. I don't know how much you have, but I want to know your interest, and I would come together with a storyline. This is the barbershop I'm looking at. This is what they're doing, and I'd show them exactly this. I'd point out the fact that they made this much in top line. I'd point out that they have this many barbers. I'd show them this many customers that they had. This is my head count. This is their growth year over year, and this is all I made, or all they made.
Right.
This is your proposed changes, that you're going to do this growth, that you're going to take a percentage in commissions, that you're going to add headcount for scale, which will also help your top line over here.
Right.
So instead of doing, you're going to make sure you double last year's revenue.
Right.
Right. So this is it. And I'm going to pull this much money on this one, and I'm going to pull this much money on this one. And this is my spending for this next year. I'm committing to an air conditioning unit. I'm committing to new chairs for my customers. I'm going to add this and this. And I'm going to beautify the shop, and it's going to get new paint and going to get corners cleaned, whatever it may be, right?
Right.
So, okay, great. Well, Chris, so if I give you 48,000, what do I own, right? Because if it's worth 50,000, then I should own 96% of it in dollars. My response would be, no, that's not quite a fair analogy, but I would for sure say that I'll give you 49%.
Right.
With an opportunity for clawback.
Okay.
So I would say, look, right now out the gate, I'm going to give you a 49% stakehold. And here's why. I know that you're putting all the money in, right? But 2,000.
Right.
But I'm going to be putting forth all the effort, and I'm going to give you monthly update. You have to do that. Regardless if it's your mom, your in-laws, your best friend. It's back to just treating them like your employee, but just remember they are informed kind of your boss.
Right.
It is their money, and they do need it back. There's two ways for them to get their money back. With clawback, what you're saying is, hey, look, I want to give you give me 48,000. Over the next several years, I want an opportunity to buy this other 49% back. And the reason I put 49% is you need to be controlling. You need to be the one that makes decisions. You can set parameters around it. Say, look, I'm going to be able to spend, without checking in with you, up to $1,000.
Right.
But anything over $1,000, and maybe it needs to be lower, right? Because if they're that much in, maybe it's a $500 max.
Right.
In any outside of daily cost of goods sold, like product or whatever, you can't spend anything more than $500 without calling and getting an email from me saying it's okay that you buy it.
Right.
And recognizing when you make those type of agreements that you are liable for anything outside of it. That if the investor that invested in you sees that you're buying stuff outside of permission, then you owe them 100% of whatever it is that you bought.
Oh, okay.
So recognizing the risk that you're putting forth for yourself when you make those type of commitments do a comfort level for your investor and also put a checks and balance in for you.
Gotcha.
Right? Does that make sense? Like,
Absolutely.
hey, I'm going to be diligent with your money. This 48,000 is going here, and maybe you need more. Let's say that you needed 60,000 because there's things you want done right away, right? But I would keep that at 49%, and then I would say, look, this year we're not making any money. I'm gonna change the commission structure, the rent structure, and the product purchase structure, the apron structure, everything that you can possibly make money on. But my goal is to net out about $100,000 this year. With that $100,000, I'm going to reinvest in a software for my booking, a software for my paying, the software for my scheduling, a software, and then some new stuff for my customers and new seats and new this. This shop by the next 12 months will look like this to the best of my ability.
Right.
Right. And we'll do checkpoints monthly to make sure. And it can be as simple as a Zoom call or an email that gives them that transparency. But now after year one, if during year one there's some extra opportunity for cash, while we're partners, we're going to split this 49% net profit goes to you.
Okay.
I keep 51
right
on top of my pay. And then I would declare what your pay is. Like I'm going to take $2,000 a month salary. So that comes first.
Right.
Plus my haircutting minus commissions.
Okay.
So I'm going to make my money I make on haircuts, and I'm going to pay myself $2,000 a month to do this. Now, that may be argumentative, and for me, I would say, no, you're not.
Right.
Since you're not paying $50,000 in, you don't get a salary for the first while.
Right.
At least 12 months.
Okay.
Right? So or 24 months. It may be whatever you can come up with, depending on your investor. If it's a $2,000 a month salary, I'm going to say, well, then you put in 2 years, right, at no salary, and you just pay yourself commission, and then we're going to build up the nest egg, and then we're going to split it 49.51 at the end of every year. So you'll still get your money.
Right.
They'll just get a higher dip before you pull your salary out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you pull 24,000 out of $100,000 net profit, then there's only 76 that they get 49 on instead of 100 that they get 49 on.
Yeah.
So depending on how you play your cards, I would lean to the benefit of your investor because it makes it easier for both parties.
Right.
For you, it's harder because you're losing a little bit of money, but they are giving you opportunity that you don't have.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
So then it comes back and you just have to respect it. It's frustrating and you're going to be mad and you're not going to like your investors and you're going to have some issues because you feel like they're getting and they're not working. But remember, they worked their freaking tail off for the $50,000.
For sure.
So don't write that off.
Yeah.
Right? Don't write it off. And they may be worth multi-millions of dollars. But you have to remember the $50,000 that you're taking is for your startup. There was a point where $50,000 was their startup. So just because they have $10 million in the bank now doesn't mean that first $50,000 was in the nightmare.
Right.
So recognize that there was stress to get there too, in their initial $50,000, even though it may seem non-impactful to them in your eyes. There was a point where it was.
Right.
Right.
For sure.
So as long as you're clear and transparent, then we say, okay, look, we're going to do this clawback thing. I'm going to take 51% of the net profit. You're going to take 49% profit. I'm not going to take any salary for 24 months. But during this process, I want to be able to take my 49 or 51% profit and start buying back the stock.
Okay.
Right. And then you can declare it saying, hey, look, you get the gain. I will pay you a growth valuation of, let's say they want interest. I'm going to pay a 12% interest on your money when I go to buy it back.
Okay.
But if I don't buy it back, 12% is high, but you're making it hard for them or hard for you and more excited for them to exit. Because if you're starting to make money, it's hard to want to exit.
Yeah, for sure.
So you'll say, look, I got $50,000 in. If I pay you back by the end of the year, then I'll pay you back $56,000 or $55,000.
Right.
Right. So they'll make 12% on their money. You'll get your beauty or you'll get your barbershop and everybody's hunky dory. Now, if you wait 2 years, then you owe them $62,000. Okay. You have to make 12% a year. Then if you wait another one, you owe them $68,000 or $70,000.
Right.
Right. And then you can make payments on it every year. Say, hey, I'm going to pay $10,000. So it's going to be whatever you're in minus the percentage of interest. And then now their stock comes down.
Okay.
Right. And then there's a point that says, hey, look, no matter what, I don't want to get rid of 10%. and I think it's okay that an investor that initially invests, even if you pay them all the way back off, that they get a respectful 5% or 10% carryover.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's okay. Yeah. They gave you the opportunity. They got all their money back, and they got a small percentage of your business. Now, a true shark will come in and say, look, no, I want to buy all your, I'll give you the 50 grand. You're going to pay me back over the next 24 months, and I'm going to own 49%. That's my interest on investing in this.
Right.
But I'm going to take all my money back as soon as there's profits after your investments you declared.
Mm-hmm.
That happens a lot. So be careful.
Yeah.
Right. And it's okay if that's the way they want to invest. Those are investors that know how to play it, and that's what they want to do. And sharks in their own world think they're great.
Right.
I don't think they are. I think they give people opportunities, and I may be judged for saying that. I think that we can help a lot more people by giving and keeping small percentages of businesses and giving people the daylight and opportunity. And it is, I guess there is an opportunity to argue there that they are doing that. But I don't think we need to get all our money back and maintain the same stake we invested in.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
At least for me. And maybe I'm just a softer one at that point. But I've been on the receiving side, and I've had an opportunity to work with a partner, John Porter, that we've had our differences, but bottom line is I would be a partner with him every single day of the week. We had this same conversation. We had a clawback opportunity. When I went to clawback, he was frustrated. He was angry because our growth rate was really high.
Right.
Then I used the words that he said to me, which is, I don't care what you do what you say. He called me back the next day, and he was serving a Mormon mission as a mission president in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he goes, fine, buy it back. I don't even care. Right? So we ended up doing it, and then he took it back, and I said, look, he goes, but I would appreciate 5% for doing this, because I was buying him to zero.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I'm not. I think that's stupid, right? I get home, and of course I have a wife that's just kind of like a moral compass.
Right.
And she goes, why would you not? Like, he was your key. You would have nothing without John Porter when it comes to this. And I said, yeah, you're right. So I called him back and says, I want you to do 5%. I'm going to do it. He's like, I don't want it. If you don't want me to have it, I don't want it. Like, well, I want you to have it. My wife talked some sense into me, and I see it, and she's right.
Mm-hmm.
So he had an honorary 5%, and after he got his money back, all his money back. And then he called back another year or two later, and he says, hey, I want to buy another 5%. And we made this little jab deal. And I was like, yeah, okay. So we sold him another 5%. And it was hugely escalated in cost.
Right.
Which was fine. I wasn't really selling shares, but he owns 10% of Murphy Door now. And I wouldn't be I'm not more thrilled with anyone. Like, he's a great partner. He's pretty passive, but the thing is he's just fully trustworthy.
For sure.
Right. He does have frustration. We fight well together. He's called me everything but white without swearing, because he's a really good guy. But he's a good guy. But nonetheless, you're going to have these different opportunities. There's that one, right? So there's the friends and family. There's the other one that the best one is if you go to the beauty salon, like we were talking about, beauty salon, barbershop, whatever.
Right. I know what you mean.
And we say, hey, look, it's $50,000. I get it. We're going to do it. I want to give you $5,000 up front. I would look at their assets and just you go through it and come up with the final number first and say, let me give you a percentage up front. Call it 10 or 20%,
mm-hmm.
right? However it is, and say, hey, look, I can give you this much in cash. You can put this much on my credit card, right?
Right.
And then I'm going to go assume your lease. I want no liabilities from your future action or your past actions, but I'll accept some of your debt, depending on what that looks like.
Right.
I want to pay you this much money a month over the next 2 years with a no early payoff penalty. But the good news is, Mr. Gents, is I'm going to pay you with interest. So you're asking $50,000. I'm going to pay you 6% a year, which is more than you're going to get a bank by 6%.
Right.
Right. I mean, we talked about this the other day, that we got a bunch of money in the bank, and I think I've made like $600 on it in 2 years or something. I'm like, holy crap, you don't make any money at a bank, right? And so anyway, I would say, look, I'll give you 6% a year for carrying the note. I'm going to make you monthly payments, which is more than you're currently making at Gents.
Mm-hmm.
So realize you're going to be contributing some of your work into this pile until you change the structure. of the business where you can immediately fix it and it'll cash flow itself.
Right.
Do not talk to them about your strategy.
Okay.
The seller does not get strategy. They get what they're selling you, and you're getting this.
Right, right.
And then you talk about your 24-month takedown, that you'll pay them 6% a year on the money.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And they may push it and say, I want 8, and then you just say fine, because you're not using credit cards at 17, 25%.
Right.
You're not using a partner, which is the worst avenue. If you can get a seller finance deal, maybe it's 0 out of the pocket. Right? Like, let me assume all your debt, all your work, all your liabilities. Try that first.
Okay.
I would try that first. Like, I'd come in and say, hey, look, I want to buy it.
Right.
I have no money to give you, but I want to pay you what you're asking at this percentage of interest, right, over 24 or 36 months.
Okay.
I'll pay you on the first of every month. And if I have a late fee, you get a 10% penalty fee. If I have 2, and then after 3, then you have a clawback.
Okay.
Right? That you get it back, and none of the payments I've made you goes to anywhere but you.
Okay.
So it's 100% repossession right, like a car and then you just take a full stand back and say, and I have no clawback. Like, you get it and I walk away and I have nothing there's no recourse for me.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
And so you eliminate the opportunity for recourse and liability if you're in default.
Right, right.
Which then shows you complete submission to your debt holder, which is the seller. It's a small amount of interest and no equity to have a partner.
Okay.
So I would choose a seller finance deal with a higher level of interest over going to find friends, families, and fools at no interest and percentages of equity.
Okay.
Partnerships are hard because we all have different goals.
Right.
Right. And several other reasons, right? You're dealing with their wives and their families and their grandkids, and they're all the way down the line. They're like, oh, well, my father-in-law is partners in that deal, and I can't wait till he dies because I'm going to get part of that deal.
Right, right.
I mean, it's an inheritance deal. Well, all of a sudden you have this big, huge, wide web of partners that you didn't even know you had.
Right.
So just be cognizant about who you're getting into bed with. The best one is the seller.
Okay.
But you have to realize the best way to do those is submissively.
For sure.
That you're going to be the down guy.
Yep.
And you're going to be like, hey, look, I'm going to pay you this type of interest, and I'm going to do it this way. And then if there's opportunities for you to execute it early, I'm going to have no early payoff penalty. I can buy it early, and then whatever it is, interest to date is what it is. I'm not going to pay you the 24 months interest, but if I come up with 50 grand tomorrow, I want to be able to walk up to you and write you a check, and you've got to say, okay.
Right, right.
Right?
Okay.
In the meantime, I want full ownership, and I want full control. The only thing you get is a payment. You're only a debt holder without open book.
Right.
Right? Because I don't want him to see the strategy change.
Okay.
Right.
Awesome. So when you're coming up with a strategy change, how do you write like a business plan to kind of keep you in track, and
so business plan should be dynamic. I think there's a lot of fluff in a business plan, and I don't want it to be too roadmap-ish. I mean, obviously we have an end goal,
right?
Which we should always declare what is our end goal. And then how we get there obviously needs to change. And the problem, I mean, business plans are important on a high level.
Okay.
But when we get down to like, hey, this is scripture, I think that's where we can hurt ourselves. Like, because there's some different things that happen every day. But I do think that you should have a basis top line overlook of what that looks like.
Okay.
So, hey, this is what Chris's Gents is going to look like. And this is how, conceptually I think I'm going to do it. Give or take a few different maneuvers.
Okay.
Right.
Right. Okay. So when you, when we, with me stepping in, how soon from ownership change do you raise the price of the service?
Tomorrow.
So like instantly you just.
After my meetings, right? So I'm going to have meetings before I do the purchase to
Right.
make sure it's something that's wise to do if my barbers are on board.
Okay. So you don't post anything up letting the customers know, hey, within this date, prices are going up.
I wouldn't even tell them.
Okay.
I would just, and you're going to get booze on that, fine. I mean, you could tell them, I guess, but I wouldn't. I would just say, hey, look, I'm going to have my meetings with my barbers before I buy it.
Okay.
If I got full buy-in, if I have 80% buy-in, if I have 50% buy-in, either one, those aren't scary. 50% buy-in, fine.
Right.
If you got fat, the people saying they're going to leave, it's really sad. I'm sorry. I promise I'll do the best to make it better. I'm going to have your input. You're going to have input. You don't have final say, but you have input.
Right.
I will lean the majority of the time to a majority. So get input, do the best you can to fit with the majority, right? But it can't be the end all. There still has to be, you have the vision, which they don't always get to see.
So if they totally refuse to pay that extra commission on top of booth rent,
I'm really sorry.
then you got to tell them, hey, look.
That's really tough.
Okay.
I'm sad to see you go.
Right.
Like, unfortunately, I mean, I haven't done it. So if they refused, I would say, look, Chris, I understand your posture. I totally understand that you came here in a commission-free shop, and that's hard to swallow. I get it.
Right.
But the problem is, as you can see, it's not lasting. It's non-sustainable.
Right.
So what we plan on doing with the commissions is reinvest in you, in your workspace, in your customer.
Okay.
Right. And so if you'd give me the opportunity, at least give me 90 days post-implementation to show you that what I say is what I'm doing. And then I believe that you will want to stay.
Right.
And if you're not, let's talk again then, and then we'll find out what else it's going to take to keep you. You're a valuable part of my business here.
Right.
And I would be extremely saddened to see you go. But if you feel like that you've had a card change, you have.
Right.
You have a new owner, a new platform from a previous platform that was obviously not working, that no one was excited to go. You would either lose your job anyway.
Right.
All I'm trying to do is make it and figure out a way to make this thing a success.
Okay.
I mean, I think the pitch there is, hey, this shop doesn't have air conditioning, so something's not working. Is it working for you? Like, are you cool with not having air conditioning? Are your customers cool with it? It's
fundamental.
It's easy to say, hey, aren't you uncomfortable right now?
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, yeah, you're kind of right.
Right.
And then you say, okay, look what's possible.
Right. A perfect point. Right. You do start at fundamental level. You don't have to go to the point where it gets confusing.
Right.
Because there's some parts up there, Ken, that are.
Well, it goes back to, taking care of your employees. There's ideas that I got that wasn't previously done, for birthdays or whatever, for the barbers or whatever. I'd like to come in with a new set of clippers and just be like, here, happy birthday.
Great.
How
about lunches like we do on Fridays? You have it catered in the back. Just get a big Traeger. All of you can visit as barbers, talk about friends, families, and whatever else. You cook up some ribs, you share it, you sit down, close for a half an hour, you have a team rah, go over your financials, and then open back up after you've just stuffed everybody's belly.
Oh, that'd be great.
And you do it every other Friday. We do it every other Friday here, and it works really well.
Right.
We tried every Friday, and it's not that we don't want to do it every Friday. It's just it was a little bit much. People want to go home early on Friday, which is we close early on Fridays. And they don't want to hang out with other workers. But every other Friday is important because they go through financials and throughput and bonuses and get to know their neighbor instead of the dickhead in pain or the whatever in packaging, right? There's all these different ones. They're real people. So when you can sit down as a group and laugh and joke and talk about good and bad things, then it helps. So
you hiring?
Yeah, always. Hell yeah, we're always hiring.
Sounds like a great environment,
right? It's
y'all definitely set up something great. So I know there's been many businesses that fell due to the owner's lack of finance
and awareness.
Yeah, awareness. As far as like budgeting. So when you're a new guy trying to figure out financing, how do you go about taking care of expenses and profits? How much you pay for salary? How much you put away for taxes, what does that look like?
That's a super question, right? So the same right back to there's called you do your annual budget, right? And then you have a monthly budget, and then we work on a 13-week cash flow forecast.
Okay.
Right. And all of that was Chinese to me, 100%. Like it was so over my head when my board started talking about all this stuff that they wanted me to work within in these parameters to help make it so we were making net profits. I was like, what in the flying hell are they saying? I have no idea what a 13-week cash flow forecast is. I have no idea why you want to do a budget. A budget is whatever it takes. Right. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is get a snapshot of what is your target. This is my end goal. This is where we're at today. And you're lucky. Like inside this world that you're living in with this barbershop, you have a history.
Right.
You have a trending.
Okay.
So you can say, hey, look, we're at this many dollars. And, you're well into six figures. Which is impressive on top line.
Right.
Obviously, it makes no impact to the business itself other than customer count and flow. Like Ken, brought up that I missed. But yeah, we're going to make that be impactful, and then we're going to say, hey, look, so monthly we can count on, and not to go into too much, but let's call it $20,000 a month. right? So we know that we have $20,000 a month in flow, and let's say we charge 20% in commission for easy math. That's $4,000. Your taxes is on what you make, not on your gross ticket.
Right.
So you're going to have taxes on $4,000 and that's, you're not going to have tax on $4,000. Then you start spending your money like on improvements and chairs and all this, and then you're going to get taxed on whatever's left over.
Right.
So I would take your year, and you're going to say, hey, we're in July. We've made this, and that's been irrelevant. So now from July 15th to December 31st, at this trend of growth, this is what our monthly is going to look like. We're going to charge this percentage here in commissions. We're going to charge this much money here in rent. We're going to make this much money in product.
Okay.
Right. And then you have this forecasted total revenue by year end.
Right.
And then I'd take that same percentage and I'd drop it down to the monthly.
Okay.
Right. And if you do it right and you invest the way you should on a new business, you shouldn't have taxes that year.
Okay.
Right. Because you're going to spend it all back and reinvest in your property.
Right. Right.
Reinvest in your customers, reinvest in your employees. So I wouldn't put tax as a burden at this point.
Okay.
I would come back and say, hey, here's what we're going to do the first month, air conditioning. And maybe if you have $2,000 hypothetically in your bank, that's the first $2,000 you spend.
Okay.
As an award of saying, hey, thanks for staying on. I am going to take the $2,000 out of my bank and I'm going to buy you a air conditioning today.
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hey, look, new ownership, it starts now and here's our celebration. Right? Just a morale boost.
Right.
Say, because at the same time you're putting air conditioning in, you're kind of kicking them in the nuts. And I think kicking in the nuts is the wrong way to say it because it's not going to impact their take home.
Right.
Right. You're going to raise prices immediately, that $5 to $8 a haircut, and it's not going to change what they're taking home.
Right. Right.
Right. They're going to have a hard time, understanding the payment platform because you're going to have to say, hey, while you're setting up this purchase and transfer, I'd be looking for a payment platform. Hey, everybody, this is where we have to pay. We're not doing Venmo anymore.
Okay.
We can't do that anymore.
Right.
I'm sorry. Right. And this is how it's going to work. And then you can give them an opt-in that says, look, you can pay your rent on the daily. It's not going to cost you any more money. I'll actually give you a discount. I'll give you 10% off. Instead of $700 a month, it's $630.
Okay.
You could do something like that if you need cash. So you're asking, cash flow is the king of what kills most businesses early. They run out of cash.
Right.
The unique opportunity, if you need cash, is you can offer to your customers and your vendors or your barbers, obviously offer your customers a sell through Booksy or however you're going to do. I get email mining. I do some email mining through your customer base, so you can offer them discount codes. And maybe it's like, hey, come in this week and save 25% on haircut.
Right. Right.
Right, whatever it is, right? Because it's a slow week if you're seeing that on your forecasted calendar.
Okay.
The other thing is if for your barbers, you could say, look, if you pay daily this month, I'll give you 10% off.
Okay.
So you generate this much money in revenue. There's 22 working days. It's $700 a month. It's $32. I'm going to take my commissions and $32. Well, now you're building your cash flow on the daily. So what you're doing is customer-based financing.
Right.
Rather than bank financing.
Okay.
So as long as you have good control of your cash, you have a good cash flowing business. It's just they're not capturing the cash flow.
Right. Right.
Right. So once you capture it and you benefit from it and you learn how to manipulate it, you can really bring your own cash flow in to help you piece whatever you need for that month. And it can be dynamic. You can say, hey, this month I'm offering a daily rent deal. So when you Venmo them, you did 13 haircuts and you did this many shaves, and then you have your booth rent, and this is the commission, and this is your total.
Okay.
I wouldn't even declare commissions. I just say this is what your pay is. So if they're used to getting paid $25 a haircut, you just show the haircut $25.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You don't have to say you're charging $30. It's more slapping them in the face when you do that. They'll see it on the financials, but they'll say, hey, I'm paying you for 13 haircuts at $25. There's your booth rent for the day, and here's your product that you purchased. So there it is.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
And it's going to take some time. Like I said, it's going to be after hours stuff that you're going to have to do every day religiously until you find a manager that can do it while you're off.
Okay.
Which shouldn't be for a long time. Nothing irritates me more when people are like, hey, I started a new business, just hired 9 people or 1 person. Like, but you don't even have any business.
Right. Right.
So why do you need someone? Oh, we're going to be huge. I get it, but you're nothing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a negative way, But who's paying it? Well, I am. Well, no wonder you don't have cash flow. Well, we're going to get an investor. Well, that's dumb. Well, maybe you need somebody like Scott that has to do the IT work. I have no idea how to do it. Then that may be justifiable.
Right.
But when they're hiring someone else to do something that they can do, that's just a pride thing, which then gets in the way of everything.
For sure.
You know? Sure. I pride myself on having less employees. I think less when it comes to employees is better sometimes, and it's better for the employee, especially if you give some type of profit sharing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right, so the less employees, there's less hands in the cookie jar.
Definitely.
You know.
Right.
I don't know. So anyway, that's kind of how I would break down that piece.
Okay, so now getting to the opportunity to purchase the building.
Okay.
So now, how would you tackle that? How would you figure out, whether that's a good investment within itself?
Yep.
Yada, yada, that kind of stuff.
So new to commercial investing for me, I have about just under 200,000 square feet of commercial properties in Ogden, a total of about 10 buildings and 15 and a half acres. But I knew nothing going into this.
Right.
Right. One thing I did learn, however, is that if I have a tenant, with the SBA, you have to be occupying 51% of the property.
Okay.
Right. So then the SBA can help you. You need 15% down. Right. And there's two different ones, and I don't know the numbers, but there's a 7A or something and a 3O, whatever there's two forms of SBA commercial loans. You need 15% down. One has a longer term penalty, like 10, it's 10 years early payoff. And then the other one's like 3 years early payoff.
Okay.
And then you have like a 5%, 3%, 1% penalty, or 3, 2, 1. I can't remember. So you can use that as long as you occupy 51% of a commercial property. Then you get SBA financing if it's cash flow. Obviously, you have to go through all the approval states,
right?
And then you have to, leverage your whole life. Like they're going to put liens on your house and everything that you own. That's SBA is not friendly when it comes to protecting their assets. They're going to do it, right? So how that works is the bank has less risk. They're going to absorb, 40% of the risk. The bank will, and the feds are going to take 60% of the risk, or something like that.
Okay.
And the numbers may be different, but just to give you an example, they have less risk than if they were lending on the commercial property themselves.
So is SBA the only way to go?
No. If you want to go commercial lending, you can, but that's more of a 25% down out the gate that you have to pay.
Okay.
You can look at seller financing the same exact way.
I was going to say lease to own.
You can do a lease to own. I would stay away from a lease to own.
Okay.
I do a true purchase as their seller finance. I wouldn't call it a lease to own ever.
Okay.
Because then they can say, we decided not to sell it.
Right.
So let's do a sell contract with a 2-year balloon saying, hey, look, over the next 2 years, I'm going to fix these financials. I'm going to get it refinanced through a bank. I'm going to give you this much money down. That's the downfall is when you're going through this, they're going to want some money up front. So is the SBA. So the best way, if they're going to sell, and maybe you can do a seller finance where the next 2 years you're paying him money to get the deposit down, that you're going to say, hey, over the next 2 years, I'm going to save this much money.
Okay.
And then you just have checkpoints with that they can verify. You're going to pay them their lease payment, but then you're also going to be starting to save the pay down.
Okay.
Right. Where they're getting an extra kicker as the deposit.
Right.
And then you can show that when you go to submit that to the bank.
Okay.
Right. So then it'll offset some of it. But the good thing that happens there is you freeze the current value. You declare a value today.
Right.
And then you're getting the 2-year growth gain.
Okay.
Right. So let's say this building's worth $500,000. 2 years now, it's going to be worth $600,000.
Right.
But maybe, right? We don't know, but let's say that it would be. You're getting that $100,000 growth.
Right.
They're
right.
not. A lease to own, you haven't declared a price.
Okay.
Generally.
So what was that called again? Not the lease to own, but the other?
Just a purchase, just a direct purchase.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, that they're the financee or the financer on it.
Okay.
So I would say if you can buy it, I would absolutely do whatever you can to do it, and work with your landlords to try to define it. The issue is some of them want to cash out, right? And they want to move their money to a different type of property. Anyway, there's different opportunities and different methods of doing it. You can even find hard money investors. They'll give you a 2-year note, right? Okay. And they could give you the deposit and then do the financing and then do the takedown and have a debt equity position.
Right.
Where they can be on the lien or they can be on title.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for example, when we bought my first commercial property, I partnered up with a guy, and he put in a percentage of the dollars, and I paid him a percentage of interest.
Okay.
Right? He got no equity in the property, but he got income on the, so whatever the net income was, his percentage of the holding company, he got the net income, but because he was getting paid interest on his investment, he didn't get equity stake in the asset.
Gotcha.
He's just getting interest on his money.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
He does get, with interest, he also got income. Like whatever the net profit sharing was for that percentage, he did get that.
Oh, okay.
And then when it was time to exit, I gave him 3 years to pay him back. He had a ROFR. He could say, hey, look, I want to extend for 3 more years. And then I could pay him his percentage. It was 12%. It was pretty high. So he put $500,000 in. I paid him $60,000 a year for 3. And I said, hey, do you want to go back for another 3? And he says, absolutely. So he took another $60,000 a year. And then he doesn't have a second or a third, a second ROFR.
Right.
So then we have to pay out his $550,000 at the end of the deal.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's kind of how I structured it. So even though I guess it was $500,000, but there's plenty of different ways, and as long as you're open in communication and intention, then most people will listen. Not everybody can help you, but most people will listen. And if they have the opportunity and the ability, then you might find a person that can help.
Okay.
So I would focus first, because we can get really bouncy in not just you and I, but I'm talking about individually when it comes to creating business. And I'm really bad about it. I have ADD so bad that I have 90 different visions that I want to do, and I just need people to help me stay focused. But the first and the easiest thing in business is to find what it is that's the easiest to achieve, declare it, and work to it. And then add once you have figured that part out.
Okay.
So rather than try to figure out how to buy the barbershop and the building, do what's most attainable.
Right.
Which would be the barbershop.
Right.
Once you've got the model figured out, this conversation would be easy. Hey, check this out. I've got my barbershop. This is what they were making in gross revenue. This was their net profit. Now with this is how good I've been doing. With my new structure, we now take our net profit from this number to this number. This is our head count, our throughput, our people, our customers that are running through the salon every day. And this is how it's shaking out at the year end. So what I would like to do now is buy your building.
Right.
Here's what it looks like. I don't think I can qualify yet because I don't have this many months of experience. I don't have 12 or 24 months. So I need 24 months. If you're willing to take 24 months so I can build my experience and prove my model, then I can go to the bank and do it. So what I'd like to do is buy it from you, do a seller's agreement, call it out, and then do this. But once you've proven the model, it's an easier conversation to have with your seller.
For sure. For sure.
And you may miss the opportunity, and it's okay.
Okay.
If someone else buys it, it is what it is. Things happen for a reason. It's hard to digest it sometimes.
Right.
You just have to say, you know what, that's just because it wasn't the right opportunity. And I missed 286 acres in Mountain Green for $400,000 because I was in a bad mood. I didn't want to hear about it. So Spencer Bowen's dad bought it. I said, does he want it? And he says, yeah, I'll take it. Well, it's worth several $1 million.
That's a bummer.
That was last year, exactly a year ago.
Dang it.
But that happens, right? Bless Spencer Bowen's heart. But at the same time, we miss opportunities, and it's okay.
Yeah,
there's several more around the corner. But just don't dwell. Otherwise, that's just, again, you just can't move forward if you're stuck in the rear view.
Right. So how do you decide for whether, when you're going to buy a business, how do you decide for whether you want it to be a long-term investment or kind of like a quick flip type deal?
Well, if it's something I'm passionate about and I enjoy going to work every day, do it, and I can do it every day, then I don't need to flip it.
Okay.
Like if it's making money, why sell a cash cow?
Right.
But if it's something that comes in and it's like, hey, look, I'm able to take this company's net profit from $24,000 to $125,000, and then I can say, hey, look, this is worth 3 to 5x EBITDA. So now I can sell it for $500,000, and I paid $50,000, and I did it in 2 years. And then there's somebody that's willing to pay $500,000 for that.
Right.
If you're not in love with it, but you'd rather have $500,000 to take that opportunity and go do something different,
right, then
exit. Okay. If you're okay making $125,000 a year plus your annual revenue in haircuts.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you love that. Maybe you're only having to work 3 days a week. You made $150,000 a year.
Right.
Then I don't know. I mean, what is 500,000? It's only 3 years worth of work.
Yeah, yeah.
Then what are you going to do after? So it just depends on if you have another goal. And, talking to you and knowing you over the last, I guess, year, you have other ideas.
Right.
But the nice thing that you could use, some of them are self-feeding, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're at a barbershop with a comb.
Right.
That has customer base, that you can prove the model, that you can share, that you have a story, that you can advertise, it's just part of the story.
Right, right.
So by selling the barbershop, you lose the story to your comb and the impact that it may have. Okay. So just like Murphy Door, we talk about it being, hey, this is part of the story. Selling Murphy Door, we lose kind of the lab, right?
Right.
Like kind of the skunks work thing where we can kind of work through, and then we have our contacts that we work with in big box and otherwise that we can immediately test. And, we have a unique opportunity and ability that we've been able to go test nationwide product,
right?
Which a lot of people have a long time to get to.
Mm.
So it depends on whatever your goal is, right? If it's going from the barbershop to your app that's non-related,
right?
Then then fine, sell it. Take that $500,000 and invest it into your app.
Right, right. Makes sense.
But then what does you do for it? What are you going to do for income stream?
Right.
So that's catch-22.
So yeah, you just, you talk about investors, you got guys that buy businesses and just do a quick flip, and, you kind of wonder, if they put all that effort in to make it cash cow, like you were saying, why would you just flip it and sell it when you can?
So I'll give you an example.
Businesses,
So what if, right, you could do multiple. So let's say you got a $500,000 sell on yours. Now you can take that $500,000 sell and go use it as a deposit on the building you're looking at. Let's say your building was $2 million.
Right.
Well, it's got, $50,000, $60,000 a month in cash in rental.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you have 25% down.
Right.
So now you can go buy a $2 million building. You put 25% down, it's $500,000. You're generating $60,000 a month in rent on a, I guess it's about a $12,000 payment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
So now you make $30,000 a month. So you went from $150,000 a month or a year to $350,000 a year.
Right.
Being a landlord.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you stabilize the property, you get it fully occupied with top tenants, and then you do it again. And you sell that at a 4 cap. Well, if you wish about a 4 cap, but let's call it a 6 or a 7 cap, which is basically 6 to 7% interest on your annual revenue.
Okay.
Which takes a $2 million building, and you can make a $4 million building, let's say. And then all of a sudden you pick up a couple $1,000,000.
Right, right.
So that's when it's hard to judge, say, hey, why would you sell your cash cow? Well, it depends on what's their missed opportunity.
What's the bigger investment?
Yeah, where are they going to make the best return on their money? Maybe,
right.
They love their job, but there's a bigger return potential on the other, and they like risk.
Gotcha.
Right?
Right.
It's just...
small brain, I'm telling you.
It's not. It's just, you just haven't had to expand it yet.
Right, right.
You haven't had to have to do it. You will.
Mm-hmm.
And as you condition yourself through it and as you do more, you start to... It's just learning it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, I go into your world and it would be like, dude, I don't even know where to look. I'm so small-brained in your world. I don't know what's next.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I only know what you tell me.
Right.
Because I haven't had any experience in it. Never discount yourself. It's just that's not where your experience is.
It'd be so awesome to have your brain for a year and just see.
Oh, shit, you don't want my brain.
Where my life would take me,
I can.
Just like, just some.
It's a dark place.
But, just having the business knowledge, just to have it all for a year and just kind of see where your life would be.
Yeah.
It's just, I definitely want to go through the experience of learning.
That's the most important part.
I'm just saying the difference between, what I call it, small brain and.
So let me give you an
brain.
example of that concept. You're a fit dude, right?
I try to be. Yeah.
Try to be.
Yep.
Let's say all of a sudden you got blessed with these huge, just super fit,
right?
Ultra fit.
Mm-hmm.
Will you be able to keep it?
Not necessarily.
You have no idea how you got it.
Right.
So it's just a short flash in the pan.
That's about. It's a good way. Good thinking. That
so
one,
you have to learn how to condition it to get there.
Right.
In order to maintain it and keep it.
So it's just the foundation.
You have to go through it. Go fail. Go live in your car. Celebrate it. Laugh about it.
Right.
It's okay. failure is never bad.
Yeah.
It is only a self-perception that it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's ourselves feeling like we're the failure, right?
Right.
It's just not. It's just not. Laugh.
Yeah,
Who gives two shits? I don't care what you think about me. I don't care what anyone thinks. I care about what my kids think. I care what my wife thinks. I care what my parents think.
Right.
To a certain degree, because parents, they are always overprotective, right? And they don't want you to go out there and take these chances, and they're all worried. Well, they can be handicapping.
Yeah.
You know, they can keep you and retract from your ability because they're fear. But dude, like, you can't. You want to have the opportunity. Like, I'd love to be freaking Hulk, whatever. I mean, I don't even know muscle guys, but whatever. Some big dude.
Right.
It'd be wonderful to walk in and be super intimidating and say, look at these. But I would have no idea how to train to keep it.
For sure.
And for you the same way. Like, there's so many better business people than me, but I'm only in my certain level.
Yeah.
Right. I only can do what I know because I wouldn't be able to maintain.
Yeah.
And I know what I'm really good at, and I know what I cannot stand.
Mm-hmm.
I can say today, with my experience level, that I do not want to be a Fortune 500 CEO.
Right.
Like, I don't feel like with my abilities today that I could do it. I don't want to sit there. I have squirrels in my head, and I don't want to. I'll see a butterfly in a boardroom, and like, I'm out.
Like, I don't mind putting in the work. You know, I'm not scared of putting the work at all. You know, it just fascinates me that people have the knowledge to just take something else, you know, take nothing and grow it into something just huge.
Yeah.
Huge. You know, it just fascinates me, just the knowledge, you know, and that's the knowledge that I want. You know, I'm a knowledge fiend. I
Sure.
like to have as much experience, as much knowledge as possible. And, you know, ultimately my biggest goal in life would be able to change my family tree. You know, none of us have really had.
So you don't like your kids? Just kidding. I'm just teasing. What kind of family tree does he mean?
I wanted to see if there's a warranty, you know.
You mean, yeah.
Return them or something. You know?
There is, I think. So you want to change your future for your family, right? You want
Correct,
it to broadcast out, and what does that mean?
Yeah, so basically I want to, you know, we weren't making money.
Sure.
But I'd like to make it to where my kids wouldn't have to worry, their kids wouldn't have to worry, and just so on and so on. You know, future generations, not necessarily give them the world or give them everything, you know, but I like to have them set up where they won't have to worry about, I don't know how else to put this, but they could put more focus into doing kind of what I'm trying to do, continuing to fix, you know, to help the generation below.
I understand completely what you're saying, but don't rush it. Just realize that, look forward to failure. And it's hard because, I mean, you've seen some really tough stuff, and I've seen some tough stuff that we can get into our head, right? That we can bring ourselves down quickly. I've struggled with depression. You've struggled with depression, I'm sure.
Right.
Right. I mean, obviously, and alcohol doesn't help.
Yeah, for sure.
We've all done it, and thank God that we did, because now here we stand on the other side of it and say, hey, look, there's some opportunity here that I know I can get through almost anything. And I think as we move through life, we want to shortcut difficult when really we need to look at it differently and say, this took forever to learn. Like, I truly was hard on myself, and I never wanted to fail again. Like, I just failed. Like, oh, guess what? I tried a business that at 19, no one else in the neighborhood tried. And I did really, really well. And then I sucked hind tit and shit the bed and lived in my car.
Right.
Like, now I was this super arrogant, prideful dick that all of a sudden's in my car, which to most people, as it probably should, hindsight, be funny. Like, look at the guy that thought he was the best on the planet, no humility, and now has to finally deal with himself. Truly funny, really. But it wasn't then. Right. But now you go through and say, you know what, that is, I'm super thankful for it, because now I know what I don't want, and I know that it just takes effort, it takes try, it takes failure, it takes frequent failures, right, in order to carve you.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you end up at the other side, and as long as you're appreciative of it and you respect that you can get your head there, and it's a dangerous place to have it, that you just kind of know what gets you there and to stop before you get there and not go into those places that do it.
Sure.
And it's easier said than done. I mean, I'm walking through this saying, hey, it's easy. It is not. Like, it is something that is a constant focus, a constant effort.
Definitely is a struggle.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Every day.
For sure.
But as long as you respect it, like a rattlesnake in a pin, you don't go put your head in it and grab it and try to tease it.
Right.
You know that you'll probably lose eventually. Then don't.
Right.
Just respect that it's there.
Right.
Just respect where you know your headspace is, and you know that you don't bring it there, that you know it and you understand it and you appreciate it because it keeps you in line.
That's why I try to do more positive tasks rather than falling back to drinking or whatever else. Just trying to continue to progress. You know, I don't want to be laying on my deathbed thinking back on my life and how I just lived it mediocre. You know, why be mediocre when you could try, like you were saying, make mistakes, fail, screw up, whatever,
Good.
you know.
Yeah.
So I don't want to live a mediocre life. You know, I want to live it as much as possible. Fuck up, you know.
Do it.
And just learn.
What else are you thinking? What else is out there that we could narrow it down to help you make some confident decisions?
You know, I think you cleared up a lot of it. You know, I've been stressing out. You know, the last couple of weeks. You know, debating back and forth in my head constantly, day in, day out. You know, is this the right decision? You know, obviously it's the easy road to say, you know what, I'm going to pass up on this opportunity. You know,
So,
it's
here's the other thing with stress. I wanted to point that out while you just said it. Stressing out. Stress, as long as you use it right, can be healthy.
mm-hmm.
But as if you're not using it in a healthy manner, it can be completely debilitating.
right.
Don't let it get there. Use stress as a fuel to find the solution,
Mm-hmm.
but don't let it debilitate you to where you can't make a decision.
Right.
Right. So you look, stress is exciting. Stress is helpful. Stress is a fuel. Stress is dopamine if you're digesting it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
If not, stress is a killer. Stress makes you sick. Stress handicaps you.
Right.
Stress makes you not make decisions. Stress completely puts you in a corner and insecure. So check stress as much as you have to. Right.
Obviously, my brain likes the bad stress. You know, last night I'm running off 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Don't
So we all suffer stress. I did a lot.
Right.
But I'd like it now. Like, to me, I find.
So how did you find the best way to manage it? You know, when you got this huge decision on your mind, you know,
it is huge.
Is there any like advice you got to kind of
to balance? Yeah, just put it all in check.
Yeah.
So I would take it and say, okay, obviously I can't make good decisions with stress.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the facts. So what is stress? Tell me what stress is, a super high level, at least in your perception, just in a few words.
What is stress? Just worry. You know, what if.
So what is worry?
It's the what ifs.
What is the what if?
You know, is this going to fail? Am I going to screw up? Is this a bad is this a mistake?
So all those things properly digested is good, right? We just said, hey, fell.
Right.
Fell frequently, fell fast. So we can take that off of stress. Now what?
Go for it.
So I'll tell Mark Meek's story.
Uh-huh.
We had some major growth with Murphy Door this last year. And Mark is an amazing manager.
Mm-hmm.
He is an amazing manager. I love Mark Meek. I will move factories to put where Mark Meek is. Mark came from warehouse management, right? So he managed product flow of liquor and tires and just a bunch of different things. He's in Kentucky, so obviously that's a big part of the industry. But we are a manufacturer. But initially, Kentucky was a distribution center. So when it came to distribution and partial assembly, Mark was freaking great at it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then we come in and we flip a switch and we say, okay, we're going to do more and more manufacturing. Now we're staining. Well, these were slow progressional steps, and Mark got really good at it, and he was able to digest it. Well, in the fall of last year, we decided to put in a whole manufacturing facility in Kentucky. Right. Boom. Fell. Huge fell. He didn't know how to do ordering. He didn't know how to do this. He put a lot of trust in his management and this. And so we had a supervisor on the floor that was just telling him a bunch of malarkey. Well, when we went out there, you could see it. And then he made comments that were negative to his manager about Mark. Mm-hmm. And we had to terminate immediately because I don't do red dye, right? A red dye in my tub and you're gone.
Right,
if you're dripping red dye in my tub of water, I have to exit you today. Like, it's just not happening.
Right.
It's too hard. So we terminated him. Well, it brought a lot of stuff to light because it was able to blind. This kid was able to blind some of the stuff for Mark because Mark wasn't out there in the warehouse or manufacturing because he didn't understand it. He didn't know CNC work. He didn't know any of these paint machines. He didn't understand any of it.
Right.
So when we go out there and reality starts to expose its ugly head, we had to sit down and tell Mark, say, Mark, look, you either have to figure it out or you're fired, right? The bottom line is you have 90 days to right this ship or you're gone. What's happened is we went from you buying, 30 doors a day. We automate this place, and now we're down to 17, right? So we go from 40, and he should be doing 50 or 40, 50, in an 8-hour period, and now we're dropping.
Right.
So I says, look, you're costing, I think it was in January, and by the end of January to middle of February, it was like $630,000 in lost top line in just a few months, right? Or in like 6 weeks. So I told him, this is it. You got to fix it or we're out, which was the hardest thing for me to ever say. And Mark may feel like I'm a dick, and I probably act like it a lot. But to people I respect a lot and to people I know have a lot of ability, I'm pretty hard on. Like, I don't let him puss out, and he's not a puss.
Right.
So he's like, okay, I'm not going to do this. You're not going to get this done. And then we had an emotional conversation, and he's like, I'm super stressed. I said, about what? He's like, dude, you told me if I don't fix this in 90 days, I'm fired. I said, so why are you stressed? And he goes, excuse me? Like, you got my life, you got everything, my salary, you got my insurance, you got my 401, you got, like, I'm super stressed. I could lose this. What if I fell? I said, okay, so what do we know? We know for a fact, if you don't hit a target step within 90 days, then you're fired. Right. So the question, if you can't do it, what's going to happen is gone. So there's no reason to be stressed about what is the result. You already know. If you hit the target, no firing. If you don't hit the target, you're fired. So that's less stress.
Right.
So he's like, excuse me, how does that less stress? I'm like, well, it's knowledge, right? The unknown is why we're stressed. So we know that that'll happen. Now the next thing, what is the target? I know the target. Okay, now we break it down per cell and how many things each unit has to do, and I hit my target. So all you have to do is go to each cell and make sure they're hitting your daily target, and I'm giving you an opportunity for a 90-day growth pattern to make sure you hit that number in 90 days. So we have small steps over 90 days, which is roughly 65 working days. You only need to improve this many units per day, a half a unit a day, a quarter unit per day for the next 90 days, and you hit your target. Can you do a unit a day? Yes. Can you do 3 units a day? Yes. What? Then why are you stressed?
Right.
Just go act. Well, he goes, so of course the next morning he goes, I had this long thought about your stress conversation. He goes, I don't understand it. I'm freaking out. And then finally, after I spent the whole week there, I was there 2 weeks, I think. And he goes, I get it. Like, I'm able to just clarify my view of what needs to happen. And I'm not really stressed. I'm mission oriented. Right? I know what my results will be if I don't. I know how to get to those results. So then don't be stressed about it.
Right.
Don't call it stress. Call it I'm incentivized. Right?
Valid.
So to your piece, like, how do you not stay up till 2 in the morning because you're wondering what to do here?
Right.
The only question you have is, can you make $1 more than you're making today to make sure that you're paying the bills? Are you taking more of a liability on? Is it a negative cash flow situation, or is it a positive one? If it's negative, I'd say don't do it.
Right.
Because then can you do it? Do you want to lose money? No. Are you going to be a millionaire overnight? No. Because you start a business? No.
Right.
Just keep going. You're all right. Are you making money? Yes. How much? A penny. I'm like, but it's black. Yes. Okay. No red. Okay. You're all right then. Just keep going. You're fine. If it's red, you can still keep going, but you can't do it very long.
Man, I love how you break it down Barney style. You know,
that's all I understand.
Yeah, man.
So now, and here's the other thing, like Seinfeld, it's like a Band-Aid, right off. Just get these bad calls done. So in the morning, call the bad things done first. Like, what's stressing me out last night? Yep, it's this whole conversation on the purchase. Okay, I've got a game plan. I'm going to go in there and say, hey, look, assets don't make sense. What did you pay for them? This is what I'm willing to pay. And before I even said anything, I'd say, this is what I'm willing to pay for all this stuff. Go through and tell me what you won't pay or what you don't want to sell me.
Okay.
And then I'll know. Great. Top line is irrelevant to me, so I'm not doing a multiplier of top line. This is what you've made. I'm going to take, okay, you've made this, and I'm going to do a multiplier of this. Fine. Or you come up with a number and say, look, The top line I understand is a value because it tells me traffic, but it doesn't make me any money. So what you're making at the end of the day isn't clear. They haven't really defined net profit there. There's not EBITDA there. It's got a whole bunch of stuff that gets confusing, and then they multiply gross revenue, which is not part of how they should price the project. So you come up with a value you're willing to pay. Say, look, I'm willing to do it this way. I need to do it over term. I'll pay you with this in months, and then you come up with a term line. And it should be simple. Say, I want to pay you over 24 months. I'm going to pay you this much money. I'm going to buy this stuff. I'm going to assume your lease, and then you can have a clawback. I want a clawback, or I want to be able to buy this out in this amount of time. I want to be full owner right now, and then you're the debt holder.
Right.
So you're going to do a loan for me for the purchase price. I'm going to pay you with interest monthly over this many months.
Okay.
And that's it.
Perfect.
So it's not that they're partners in the business. They have no transparency. They're a debt holder on a loan for the amount you're purchasing for.
Right.
And if they come back and say, no, sorry, I can't do that, I want to sell it. Then you say, okay, if that's not the case, then I need some more time to see what I can do. But, in the meantime, go out and try to sell it.
Right.
And that's a hard one to say. But then it kind of takes the power away from them again, because they know it's like the guy that wants to buy the car, like, oh, but I've already rode it, and I look good in it, and I took it home, put it in my driveway, and it looks great. Like, we've already started to spend the money in our head, and they know it too. So just say, you know what, then you probably ought to try to sell it. I'll see if I can come up with an opportunity to buy it. If I can't, then, and it's sold, I understand.
Okay. Perfect.
Right. Yep. And then, but I would do those conversations fast. I'd say, hey, look, what am I willing to pay for this? This is what I'm willing to pay for it. This is how much I can afford a month off their revenue stream. You have your plan A on how you're going to make more money. And then as soon as they accept it, say, hey, if you're willing to do terms, then I'm going to write you up a letter of intent. And you can do it on a 24, on 12, call it 14 days, or you can do it on 30 days or 60-day execution. If they're going to be seller finance, and you can do it quick. Those 14 days due diligence is going to be talk to your landlord and to be talk to your other barbers, to see if they're going to stay, to see if you're okay with the structure,
right,
and discuss with them what you're going to change and why. Back to the fundamentals, like Ken said, right?
Right.
I would do that. And then if you find a lot of friction in those 14 days, retract your letter of intent.
Okay. And then would it be smart to get an attorney involved? Kind of read everything?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All
that
right.
may be where your first couple thousand have to go.
Okay.
Don't let it consume you. Just find the answer.
Right.
We sit there and we get consumed. We sit in a corner and curl up in a ball and be scared. Yeah. That's all that's happening in our blankets at night when we're laying in bed not sleeping.
And I think that's real common. Because there's not very many successful business owners out there. If it was easy, everybody would be.
It's exactly right. And it's a tough shell, right? We all have these tough shells that think we can get through this stuff and we're not stressed, that we'll walk through bullets and it's fine.
Right.
But ultimately we all have the same fears, right? The fear of failure, the fear of not being able to take care of our family and our spouses and everything else. We all have the same stress.
Right.
And it's okay. It's just how we use it. And it takes practice. It's okay. You've been through way different stresses than I have, that I probably would fumble on. And you'd like, hey, dude, get up. You can't just stress out right there. You got to move.
Right.
That's different. Like again, it's conditioning. So
okay.
I think you have good opportunities, and as long as they're willing to work with it and you can make a thing that works, remember, don't give too much, because you have to make it profitable. So if you give to the point where there's no vision of profit, then the answer is still no.
Right.
As long as there's daylight to profit and in a reasonable expectation to profit, as long as you run it the way you're supposed to, then there's opportunity. But if there's not, then don't take on somebody else's dead horse and try to maintain a dead horse, because those just take barn space.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
well, I appreciate you. Feeling a lot more confident about it. And
well, if there's anything, my number, and I need to get my hair cut. I don't know when you work. Are you going to work next week or in the next few weeks, you think?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Well, awesome. Chris, thank you for coming today.
Yeah,
I appreciate having you on.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Oh, heck no. We'd love it every time we can.
You're a good dude, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Have a good one, man. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to 90 Proof Wisdom Podcast. Hopefully there was a takeaway for you. If you like what we're doing or even our efforts, tell your friends about it. Let us know what we could do better. Again, thank you for listening to 90 Proof Wisdom Podcast. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button.